Hey, beautiful people. How is everybody doing? How's the Scorpio full moon treating everyone? Took me a minute to get in here, guys. I'm telling you, the struggle is real. The struggle's real. Time is a whole thing at the minute. But I've got a little something different that I want to do tonight for us. With this Scorpio full moon energy, I really want to be able to give us an opportunity to kind of work with the energies. Um, we're going to do a pick a crystal reading for tonight's session. I know usually on Fridays we have our Free Yourself Friday sessions. That's going to be tomorrow. We're going to do that a little bit earlier because we're going to spare Martin. We're going to try and wrap that up early. um, and then we'll actually have a bit of a live sort of, I guess, back and forth as well. I've been trying to get that going. That hasn't been optimized. It didn't, I guess, manifest too greatly last time, but Shaylee was able to come into the space last time and break it down, really, as far as what goes on behind the scenes with the situation, because I think that was an issue as far as audio. We had some issues with audio. But tonight we're going to do a pick a crystal reading for the Scorpio full moon, just to, I guess, be able to give us an opportunity to gain some insight into what needs to be done during this cycle. There's a lot of energy. I did speak about it on Wednesday, I think it was. I spoke about the fact that obviously we've got Pluto retrograde sort of taking place this month as well, and Scorpio sort of dynamic. It's dynamic with Pluto. I mean, it rules. So that kind of energy, it's almost like Scorpio energy is kind of like pulling the tides as well. The Pluto retrograde as well, like the full moon for tonight is pulling the energies there as well. There's a lot going on in terms of the numerology there as well. So it's going to be an interesting time, guys. I want to be able to, I guess, give us an opportunity to learn what's coming as far as the pick a crystal. I'm sure the crystal that you pick is ultimately going to kind of be aligned with whatever path you need your guidance or information. I feel like the last time I actually did this live, it's all three of them actually apply to what transpired in life in general. But this space, I want to be able to do something a little bit different for us as well. I want to do a little bit of a release. We can burn some ish tonight. I made a candle special for us as well. Let me try and get that there. I was like actually setting the space for us. I had to, I had to eat. Okay, I had to eat and get myself ready to be able to come into this space and, navigate. I don't know. It's cool to do purple for some reason because it was, I guess they were saying that we're going to have like a lot of crown chakra activation as well. Like during this season, there's a lot that needs to be, obviously, because Mercury's in retrograde as well during the dynamics of this Scorpio full moon, and it's a lunar eclipse as well, so there's a lot of stuff that's breaking away. So I want to sort of like bring it's interesting because this happened at the time when I was taking it out of the mold. Still pretty sturdy, but I usually utilize these as context to be able to gain some insight and understanding about so the candle the candle actually sort of like represents the journey, basically the intention that I'm setting. Depending on how the candle's process goes, it lets me know how easy or challenging the process of the situation or the intention may be. Smells lovely as well. This one was very intentional. This was about unicorn dreams and sprinkles, definitely activating that unicorn sensory motion, like that just being a one in a million type thing, right? And then I did get guided as well. I think it was a pretty easy process just to sort of like give you a candle read, right? It was a pretty easy process in being able to kind of like execute on the candle and get it done. I think I failed said candle on the removal process. So it's like an incubation because it's a molded format. So it was an incubation last night. I removed it this morning and I unfortunately didn't take into consideration. I think my thought process actually also was a factor to it because I think it happened just as I was having the thought, interestingly enough. But the variations of the purple. So we're going to go from like deep layers of the crown to more lightened states of being. So it's going to be an interesting one. Definitely our root chakra is going to be impacted. So our root chakra is going to be chipped away a little bit. That's what I kind of like observed. Once I observed that, there's like a couple pieces of us that's going to kind of like be transcended during the climate of this Scorpio full moon as well. And it is going to have a lot to do with it was interesting as well because then I was called to the blue ribbon because it was about throat chakra processing during this climate. So that's going to be interesting. So it's going to be one of those situations for us where we have to be cognitive of the things that we're speaking based on the stuff that we're manifesting, because there's a piece of us that's actually going to be going through a process that, you know, we have to lose it basically to kind of like survive the war. Basically, that's the best way that I can put it. But it seems as though we do actually get to a good place with the situation. Just observing the process, it was very quick, very easy to kind of like lay the scope. So that means whatever the intentions are that we're going to be releasing during this cycle, you know, during our little candle ritual as well, to kind of like burn this ish and let it go. That's going to be just as quick, I guess, in essence, in terms of the turnaround, but it does mean that we're going to have to be prepared to shed. Because obviously this is in the climate of the full moon. So this is about releasing, right? So we want to be mindful about what it is that we're releasing. I'll say that much because the chipping, it can be like detrimental depending on who is chipping away at what. What do I mean by that? So everything's about relationships, right? So you have to be mindful about what relationships may show up because, again, we're in Taurus season whilst this Scorpio full moon is actually like being activated. It's a lunar eclipse as well. So areas where we may be a little bit rigid and stubborn, those things, we're going to block some blessings by practicing that advocate, right? Because we're advocating for a particular part of ourselves, but not all of us feels that way. It's probably the majority, but the minority still has like some internal, I guess, unsettlement with it. They haven't, like, pieces of yourself hasn't quite settled, I guess, with some of the decisions that we've made. And technically, we're actually navigating through the manifesting process being very indecisive. So that aspect, we're going to shed some of that, which is nice, right? It's good, but it is going to come, like I said, with its own process of, you know, just a bunch of stuff that we basically need to let go of, not just within ourselves, but also control factors are going to be heightened during the season. Again, Scorpio is a fixed water sign. So we are going to be tested in a lot of areas, basically, where it comes to our boundaries, right? It's about affirming boundaries. And it's also about receiving boundaries as well, because this is a climate we have to take into consideration. Pluto is in retrograde in Aquarius. And it's going to be that way throughout the entire period of May. Once it gets into, you know, Capricorn, I'll let you guys know in June, because it's different, I guess, depending on where your time zone is. But with this dynamic tonight, so what we want to do, we're going to go and dive into the different crystals. I'm going to sort of pop some out of the little packet here, actually. I've got some crystal chips, because I wasn't too sure about doing the usual pickings that I've got. And I was just going to let the guides pick. We've got the Dalmatian crystal. I'm being drawn to that. I don't know if you guys can see it. They're like tiny little chips. I've got like a whole bunch of them. That's why I like had the photo. It was interesting. I didn't actually know at the time when I brought the photo up for this one. We're gonna go as well with the golden tiger eye as well. Okay. It's interesting the crystals that are being like really strong, firm crystals here that are being selected. And we've got some red jasper as well. Right, and I think I get this one. I think I understand this one because the root chakra is definitely going to be impacted. So for the people where their root chakra is off balance, that one's for y'all. Okay, I can tell you that for free already. Those of you who are navigating and you're drawn to the golden tiger eye crystal, you're probably navigating through solar plexus activation. Dalmatian crystal, I'd say more sort of like sacral chakra. But it is going to be one of those cases where it actually charges up all of your chakras. So it's going to, how all the other chakras are charged is going to be determined based on where the sacral chakra is for you, personally speaking. So we're going to go and dive into it. We're going to start. I didn't have anything pre-prepared. They were like, no, you don't have time. Get into this space, and you'll be able to get it done because we wanted to be able to select. I didn't know what crystals we were going to select as well coming into the space. But yeah, take your pick. So crystal number one, we have Dalmatian. Definitely useful for the sacral chakra charges. Bear with me, y'all. That's my mama. She gonna be in here in a minute. Hold up. She gonna be here in a minute, I'm sure. This was a lastminute.com as well, as far as like me putting the memo out on like the live. So hopefully who's supposed to see this will come back and they'll see it when they're supposed to see it, because yeah, I'm sure tomorrow is going to be filled. It's so interesting that on Fridays I can't get enough time into this space, right? But see, there we go. My mom's in here. I know she's in here. I know that's her. Hey, mama. But yeah, so first crystal we have is the Dalmatian crystal, sacral chakra. You're definitely going to need to sort of like balance out some of the places where your creativity is experiencing blockages, potentially based on a lot of the times when we're dealing with sacral chakra blockages, it's actually a lot of displacement with the heart chakra. So again, because we're moving through rigidity, you probably have situations that you're manifesting or trying to manifest where you can't move on from certain things, but you have like a lot of high expectations, basically. And those high expectations and the rigidity of not being able to move on, those two don't align. So the universe is kind of trying to bring your awareness to the places where you are basically placing these expectations that may not necessarily. So how can I put it? It may not necessarily be in terms of your prioritization. Hey, Ash, beautiful. In terms of your prioritization may not necessarily be in the right places, basically. So you might be trying to manifest something and you aren't necessarily putting your energy into the places that you think that you're putting your energy. And the places that you actually need to be focusing on, those places are kind of falling to the wayside as a result of you not necessarily being like aware and cognitive. You're kind of creating these self-imposed restrictions because you're kind of doing a tunnel vision thing, but your priorities off. There's something that you're actually wanting and you're focusing on something else, putting a lot of the energy into that space. And that can be okay, but that's only if you're going to, activate your I guess your Two of Pentacles energy. I've been like, that's been a theme. That has been a theme. I feel like this Scorpio full moon is ultimately going to be like Two of Pentacles energy, period. it just gives me that vibes. I've literally been saying that about the kind of climate that we're navigating for like the last 2 to 3 days, and usually like you'll start to sense a little bit within the first 72 hours of the moon and the final 72 hours, like what to expect really. But yeah, for those of you guys who are drawn to the Dalmatian crystal, so just to reiterate, the crystals of choice is the Dalmatian crystal, and we've got the golden tigerite crystal, the gold tigerite. Yeah, sorry, we've got crystal chips. They're like tiny little crystal chips. I've got a bunch of these bad boys. I don't know if you can see. There you go. There you go. Got to learn how to do the angles, y'all. But yeah, that's the golden tiger eye, and then we've got the red jasper as well. I was just sort of speaking about the Dalmatian crystal and what may be showing up with that. So the sacral chakra blockages, definitely we need to sort of look at where we're paying our investment, where we're paying our time, where we're paying our skill sets and resources. Those things are going to come into question during this Scorpio full moon, and it may be a little bit fiery in terms of how it comes in as well, because obviously we're still navigating through the Mercury retrograde transit, and Pluto's also gone retrograde as well. Okay, there's Mum. She's joined the room. Hey, Mama. So yeah, the Pluto retrograde transit in Aquarius is definitely going to be doing the most as well during this transit, because that's ultimately to do with societal values. So there's other people that are going to be impacted by some of the decisions that we're making, and those things are going to come into questioning. We're also going to have to sort of like question certain people about their responsibilities and their accountabilities to us as well. So a lot of those things during this climate can be a little bit testing. So I understand why these three crystals are here actually, because we're dealing with like the lower chakra region. We've got the Dalmatian for the sacral chakra, the golden tiger eye for the solar plexus, and the red jasper for the root chakra. So that's very interesting as well, because the candle, like I said, to begin with, just to sort of put it across, because at the end of this, guys, after take your pickings, guys, and decide what crystal, I guess, is kind of calling to you. But we're going to burn some stuff at the end of this as well. I did sort of do a little bit of a candle reading initially to kind of give you guys some insight into what the energies are actually going to be like in terms of what it is that you're manifesting. However, even though those variables, I guess, in terms of the shedding is a major factor, it still seems like it's going to be a quick turnaround. I do just want to put that out there. It seems like the climate that we're in is really setting us up for a quick shift in change and momentum. So it should be good, guys. Should be interesting. I'm going to start with the first crystal, which is the Dalmatian crystal. And we're just going to dive into it and see. Firstly, we're going to see where are we actually. For those of us who've chosen the Dalmatian crystal, whenever we get to see this, where are we during the Scorpio full moon transit? Okay, interesting. Lack of faith. We're navigating through a lack of faith. Oh, interesting, because that's to do with the sacral chakra, right? So that's the resistance that you have, guys. Interesting. So your thing with your sacral chakra charges, your lack of faith is actually stemming from it's actually stemming from a place of the rejuvenation process that you're navigating through. Okay, so we've got the Five of Pentacles, but we've got it in reverse. So it's not necessarily a case of you feeling like you're casted out in the cold, or you're, having to be in isolation. You're actually, if anything, being brought out. I guess you're being brought to the forefront, right? And there's some anxieties about these things as well. you're kind of recovering from the anxieties of some of the things that has actually caused you some anxiety up to now. I want to say it's interesting because this is the thing. This is the thing that's causing the blockage in your sacral chakra. Even it's the things that makes you anxious. Basically, those are the things that you're going to be releasing during this Scorpio full moon. So for you, let's have a little look and see what path you're crossing. Literally, I was just about to start speaking, and they were like, "Go to the other card." I'm like, "Okay, let's do that then." Let's do that instead. Let's see, what path are they crossing? For those who will choose the Dalmatian, guys, what path are they crossing? Oh, you are releasing fear on happiness and confusion. Okay, the things that you're anxious about is really like your fear radar sort of picking up on certain aspects of the atmosphere basically that you're navigating through, and it's kind of warning you. It's like, oh, by the way this, oh, by the way that, and then your body's obviously picking up on the information that is transmitting as anxiety, because that's how the chemistry of that, I guess, input, that receiving that communication intuitively through the system, right? Because the body is doing its own thing. The way that you'd receive that, once that comes in, it will then trigger anxiety as far as the levels. And again, the levels of our serotonin, dopamine, like all of the levels of the chemistry. It's a very, very compute. Oh, I can't wait to learn more about that actually. Like, I'm talking because they're like talking to me about this stuff, and I'm like, I get it, but I don't know that I have the dialect so much to really be able to articulate it to you guys in the way that they're giving it to me. But once I do, you guys will get a lot more in the context of it. But basically, there's like different layers of the chemistry that dictates different. So anxiety looks a certain type of way in terms of the chemistry of it. Depression looks a certain type of way in terms of the chemistry of it. There's a certain level. These are like gauges, and it will let us know when our bodies is basically in these types of states, right? So for you, my loves, you are navigating through. We already had this discussion when I was actually reading from just the crystal indecision. You're actually releasing your contract of indecision. You're releasing your contract of not being able to, I guess, persevere against the challenges that you're navigating through. And what I mean by that is that you haven't necessarily made a decision either way. You've kind of made a decision, but not quite made a decision. So you're kind of in this limbo state with whatever it is that you're manifesting, right? And that's actually what's causing you to be in this place. Your fear of what's on the other side of it, your fear of what it is that you might meet as you kind of move along the process, your fear of all the questions. Some of the things that I hear in the fear as well for some people is doubt. So there's a place of self-worth that's also questioning whether or not one deserves some of the things that you're trying to manifest. I think for some of you as well, you're questioning whether or not, if you're in dynamics with other people and you're holding yourself back in situations, because you're kind of telling yourself this story that they don't necessarily deserve certain things, but you're actually blocking your own blessings because there are things that you're praying for, and basically the universe is aligning the most viable candidates and lining those candidates up based on the astrological facts that are at play at the minute. Mercury's in retrograde, so there's likely to be conversations or situations from the past that we're navigating through during this climate as well. So I do understand wanting to protect your peace, basically being in your Five of Pentacles vibes in reverse, where you're internalizing your spiritual recovery. You're basically going through a process of rebooting. You're kind of getting all of your energy back into a state where you feel almost whole again. And I get that, right? Definitely get that. And I get that you appreciate the fact that that's where you find your mental clarity, where you're not necessarily having to kind of compute any other I guess, variables where other people are concerned. However, you've just been sat in limbo. You've not actually made a decision, basically. You've kind of made a decision, but not really made a decision. So, because of that aspect to the situation, ultimately moving forward for you, the path that you're crossing at the minute, you're actually going to find that you may actually find yourself being unresourceful. Um, so your resilience is definitely going to be tested as you navigate through the climate of whatever it is that you're trying to manifest, where your resistances keep showing up. To remind you that what you're manifesting is reliant and dependent on your ability to manifest within the space as well. And what you allow will kind of go, and it will also grow. Okay, what you nurture and cultivate as well. So if you are nurturing and cultivating situations where your pride is more important, then you're going to have more classes to sit to break your pride down. And pride is one of the 7 deadliest sins to the ego, basically. When I say sins, it's basically manifesting negative karma for yourself. So if you're navigating through areas where your pride has been tested during the process leading up to this Scorpio full moon, now is a good time for you to kind of like release some of that, or at least get a little bit more fine-tuned with it. Because the level of pride that you have isn't necessarily serving you in all of your relationships to the same degree and capacity. Do you see what I'm saying? Like in some places, you might need pride more than other places. So you have to find the right balance with that in terms of what you're doing and how you're navigating through situations, because appreciation, your lack of appreciation for the blessings that are actually being poured into you, is one of the things that is also equally causing you a little bit of resistance with what it is that you're manifesting. So technically, you are your own worst enemy in this sort of situation. You're kind of like blocking your blessing, basically. It's all to do with your throat chakra, this one as well, to be fair. It's interesting because the sacral chakra is definitely off, yes, but the throat chakra is ultimately where the indecision's coming into play, because it's saying one thing 1 minute and another thing another minute. So you got to get that into balance, really get that into balance. Yeah, say what you mean and mean what you say, kind of like as you're navigating through situations, because there's contracts here of indecision that isn't necessarily serving you well. And you may find yourself being victim to that, where your energy is exploited as a result because of you being indecisive. Okay, that part. Hold up. I need to hydrate, y'all. This is already too much for me. I'm like, oh, snap. Okay. Okay, so let's go and see. That's the path that we're crossing. Let's go and see how can we work our light, basically, during this type of dynamic, if this is the path that we're crossing, right? For those who've chosen the Dalmatian crystal. Oh. How do we work our light, guys? It's interesting because it's not about the great gathering. So we already know that it's one of those situations where you're kind of finding that right balance. It's not about a bunch of people. It's just about a select few people and actually figuring out how to execute in these types of dynamics, right? How do we work our light during this kind of climate? I think we're definitely in for some ego stroking. Definitely, we're kind of like there. There's definitely, success if we're able to navigate the contract well. We can sort of get to a place where we feel like, okay, the universe is starting to like give me a nice warm cuddle again, because sometimes it feels like the universe is being cold. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel like the universe is being cold. I'm like, oh my God, this feels like my Chiron energy. Okay, so the dynamic, I guess, that you're navigating through, interesting. They're saying the way that you can work your light is to kind of navigate through the inner calling, like really asking yourself, where are you being called to journey to? So each time you get triggered, maybe utilize that question. Okay, where am I being called to journey to in this trigger? Where is this trigger taking me? Hey, Chaylee, beautiful. How are you doing, my love? We was just getting into it as well, beautiful. Options we've got. I didn't actually even put any options out there. I was like starting to type it in the chat, but then I got distracted getting into stuff. But we've got the Dalmatian crystal, the golden tiger eye. We've got the red jasper crystal. So take your picking. At the minute, we've only just started with the Dalmatian crystal, but we're actually figuring out how to work our light within this climate. So they're saying that as you're navigating through this indecisive dynamic that you're moving through, right? They're saying that every time you find yourself moving through a trigger, thank you. And red jasper, thank you. Thank you, beautiful. I appreciate you. So when that trigger moves you into a certain perspective or thought process, because obviously you're being triggered, then certain feelings are going to come up, and then you're going to start having certain thoughts, right? Once those thoughts start to come up, you ponder on those thoughts, you kind of let them flow to observe them. If you find yourself letting them flow and you're basically going along with the story, that's probably not the best thing for you, because you're basically having a presence attached to your ego. Basically, when you're heavy in emotion and you're observing a thought, it's probably not the best thing if it's a low vibrating emotion for you to lean too far into it, because then you might find yourself in a little bit of a mind maze, especially in this type of climate as well. So definitely, as you kind of move through understanding these triggers so that you can understand where your resistances are, so that you can also equally understand like how to be able to like relieve your sacral chakra. um, it's all about your devotion to the process. It's all about your devotion to the journey. I think what it is that your spirit of impatience may need a little bit, well, your spirit of patience needs a little bit of balance, because it may be sort of moving from a place of impatience. And another aspect of the situation is that ultimately you are teaching in the environment that you're in as well, right? Where are you being called to journey into in terms of the lesson that's here for you, firstly? Because a lot of the times we love to teach other people lessons, but we're busy flunking on our own classes. That part, I'm guilty of that. I'm not gonna lie. I do that. But I still I try and make sure that I catch up on my classes at the same time, right? But that's also another part of the issue. You're too busy focusing on the lessons that the other person's supposed to be doing, or the relationships that you're navigating through your resistances. You're focusing on what their inability to do things are versus what your ability to do things. So the magician basically hasn't realized its ability to be the magician in its climate. So you haven't learned how to utilize the elements. You haven't learned how to utilize your voice. You haven't learned how to utilize your ability to act and be proactive. You haven't learned how to accelerate your emotional management in these types of climates when you're triggered, basically, right? And the magician, instead of being able to alchemize a cold situation and draw like warmth from it, the magician is ultimately at surrender, basically. The magician's at surrender. So this is what I said to you guys. For you guys that chose the Dalmatian crystal, you're navigating through sacral chakra blockages, and it's a lot of it is to do with your pride. Your pride is what's causing the impatience, that's showing up as a side effect of the imbalance in your spirit of patience. and your frustration, I guess, is also showing up in this manifestation of the indecision, right? You get frustrated, it's a and then it's a, oh, I don't think I really meant that. I don't think I really meant that. Well, maybe I'm not sure. I don't know. There's like a lot of that type of processing, which is what's causing the delays in your manifesting. So basically, it's not that the universe is holding anything back from you, it's that you haven't really defined clearly what it is that you do want within yourself, first and foremost. So you have to do some internal work there. I definitely get why the Five of Pentacles is there in reverse, actually, because it's saying that the path that you're actually going to be sort of like navigating through where you are in terms of this Scorpio full moon energy is like really going through an internal rejuvenation, a spiritual rejuvenation. And you're also going through a recovery from financial losses as well. That's definitely a major factor that has basically impacted the way in which you are actually navigating through the dynamics that you're moving through as well. So this is where you get to activate your priestess energy. Okay. Yes, Ash. Yes. I wasn't sure what I chose. To be fair, I think the golden tiger I called out to me, but like I said, every time I do these, I'm like, oh my god, that showed up for me. Oh my god. So I get you. I get you, beautiful. This is actually resonating potentially in ways as they're sort of like putting a lot of these things out. And I'm like, whoa, I get that. I was doing that. So I'm like, I'm learning as I'm even getting these channels through. That's why I wanted to come into the space with us to be able to like really unpack all of this stuff. But look, they're saying like to work your light, you really have to understand where you're actually being journey, like where you're being called to journey to. Like this priestess that you have within yourself is almost like she's fighting basically through all of these oh, but I can't do this, oh, but I need to do that. Like there's a lot of control basically. And the priestess, ultimately, she's strong enough to be able to withstand anything. So she doesn't need to control anything. But what she does do is learn to master everything. So that's really the energy that you're going to be navigating through for pile number one for the Dalmatian crystal. Let's have a look and see what is the message from the universe with this dynamic unfolding, right? There's like literally contracts of indecision basically that is causing the blockages. So let's have a little look and see. Okay. What is the message from the universe for my awesome folks who are navigating, needing the guidance of crystal number one? Oh, there we go. Here we go. Here we go, guys. So the guidance, interestingly, for you, all upright as well, because I read all my cards in reverse as well, just so I know if the energy is actually internalized or it's a projected format. But yeah, the message from the universe is that when it comes to the past situations, and we spoke about surrendering as well in this dynamic that's going, there's certain things from the past that needs to be, you have to kind of like let those go. You have to surrender and be willing to sort of like move into a presence of love. So it says in any moment you can surrender to the powerful presence of love through prayer, contemplation, and stillness. There are things in the past that you may need to kind of re-observe from a place of love and really contemplate, and not just a conditional format of love, but ultimately the way that God loves you. Figure out how to learn how to extend that to the places where you already find yourself being resistant to some of the things that have happened or transpired in the past. And as you navigate through the process in your here and now, you have to be willing to commit to the oneness that is the collective identity, because that's how you're going to keep in that vibration of the unconditional love, for being able to kind of like surrender to some of those past situations where you may feel like it was unfair, like it was an unjustified trial for you, and it was, the conviction of ultimately you trying to be a good person in certain situations, you not necessarily showing up at times as your best representation of yourself in certain situations. You have to be willing to forgive yourself for the part that you've played as well in allowing for what's taking place now, these indecisions that you're navigating through right now. You need to let some of that go. Okay. And really stick to this oneness, and really, like, it's like looking at someone through the eyes of how God sees them, basically, because you're going to do yourself a benefit from doing so in terms of the things that you're trying to manifest, because God's obviously working for everyone. Even those who aren't necessarily working potentially on the good side of it all, if you will, right? Moving forward, it's about staying aligned with the love of the universe, so that your peace can actually be maintained and not disturbed. Okay. And it's so funny because I literally said all of this stuff to you guys about the other dynamic, because I realized that it was your peace that you're actually looking to protect. And I get that. You know what I mean? It's ultimately you just want to kind of like be in that sort of energy, Four of Pentacles vibes, really, where you kind of want to be able to, in reverse though, because you want to be like self-protecting and everything. But as you're navigating, like, there's enough love to go around for you to actually be able to kind of like allow for your lotus flower to just expand its beautiful self. Okay, that part. Let's have a look at the outcome if we can take heed of said guidance, right? Let's have a look and see what is the outcome, guys. If we can really take heed of this guidance, what do you see? Firstly, they're saying they see a less conflict, less inner turmoil, less inner turbulence, less conflicting thoughts, and less dynamics where one's avoiding conflict. It's a case of facing whatever situation that may come up and actually being focused on the intention, being focused on the goal, and executing a target accordingly, basically. Yeah. The undertone is definitely still confusion and indecision. Interesting. So, the outcome for us is Ace of Wands energy. That means we're going to be doing differently. That means that we are actually going to be actively creating in a place where we can actually meet our potential, because we're falling into alignment with what it takes to meet said potential. It's like when we want to, so I see people that want to manifest something, but I'm like, okay, but your self-esteem is too low to actually manifest that timeline. Unfortunately, I don't think that you're actually vibrating just a little bit too low for that timeline. That timeline's a little bit further in vibration than you are, unfortunately, right? So when I say that you're going to be doing differently, you're going to be drawing from your internal inspiration. So there's going to be a lot of intrinsic motivation during this climate for you. Utilize that. There's going to be like this drive that you're going to find yourself sort of being called and pulled into a lot of these different areas. If you're able to actually take heed of this guidance of sitting and staying in observation of life, right? And moving from the vibration of unconditional love. Like I said, the easiest way to access that code is to think of everyone as how God would be seeing them. You have to try to see them through God's eyes, and you can, obviously, we're a hive mind. So you'll be able to kind of like, get access to see the value basically in situations, because it's not necessarily that your sacral chakra is blocked, it's actually that you are causing resistance to the things that you are trying to manifest, because you are blocking your blessings because of pride. And that pride is basically overstimulated now, that is causing frustration, thereby activating the spirit or presence of impatience. So you are going to be doing differently with all of that. If you can execute that, and understand that your peace is for you to maintain. It's not dependent on the circumstances. You maintain your peace in spite of the circumstances is ultimately what the universe is trying to teach on this one. Okay, that part. So I hope that that was useful for you guys, because I'm going to pack up all this good stuff now, right? I didn't even take notes of when I started the first reading. Obviously, you weren't here as well, Shaylee. I don't know if anybody remembers when I started the first reading, because this was actually a pretty long bit. But then, thank you, beautiful, because I'm like, I didn't. It completely slipped my mind. I just literally came in and started to get into the stuff, because this is a completely new space for us, and I was like trying to figure it out. Obviously, I'm being intuitively led and guided as I go through the process, but they're like, okay, so this is what we're doing, and I'm learning on the job as I'm here with you guys, actually. And they're like, oh, well, this is going to be a whole thing for us. And I'm like, oh, that sounds dope. I'm literally learning as I'm in this space, which is always very, very interesting. Always very interesting. Actually, before I do that, that's the hubby. That's the hubby. Bear with me, guys. I'll be back. Give me a second. Yeah, guys. I actually want to close out that space for you guys with a message from the angels as well, in terms of the process. Like, what's the overall guidance from the angels in terms of the process? Interesting. I don't know if you guys can see, but that says yes. Okay, so what is, oh, it's about learning the right balance with the word yes for you guys. Interesting. That's what the angel's guidance is already, sort of like putting it out there. Oh, there we go. There we go. I'm gonna go and grab that. I don't know if you guys saw. Right. Okay. Oh, interesting. So the guidance for you is to remain positive about this recovery period. You're learning how to find the right balance with the yeses that are necessary during this climate, and the nos that are also equally necessary. But you have to understand where that no is coming from. Again, remember, where are you being called to journey to when you're in those triggers, right? When you feel that resistance and it's a no, where are you being called to journey to? Okay. Oh, my bae just experienced that as well, and my mom. They got a hard no from me because I'm so busy with time. Like, I told everybody prior to that my capacity wasn't going to be the same as what it once was. But I think now that we're all navigating through it, I'm finding it a challenge, to be honest, because there's like old people as well coming back in with this Pluto retrograde transit as well for me. So it's all a bit much, guys, but we are learning. I literally just, you guys saw that live here. That's what the Scorpio full moon class and dynamic is going to be like. So if you were that person on the receiving end of that, no, see where that journey takes you. Spirit's so corny. I swear to you. Anyways, the undertone of everything that you're navigating through as well, in terms of what the guides are saying, this isn't about you needing to ask for any help from anybody else, because nobody else has got the code for this. This is all internal. This is all you. This like blame that you keep placing on others as far as why certain things aren't the way that they are is exactly the reason why you're not able to execute your power in the process of what it is that you're trying to manifest, because you're giving too many other people um, responsibility for things that you also can take responsibility and accountability for. And you'll find that if you figure out the clear thinking on the situation, because I think that the emotions of it all is actually clouding your judgment a lot deeply there. And there's a little bit of mistruth in the dynamic. There's some illusions in the air, basically, based on the stories that are being told by these emotions. So yeah, this isn't something that's about anybody else outside of yourself. This is purely all on you, my love. And the universe is saying remain positive. This is a recovery period, so the universe is assisting you with the recovery period. And it really is just a case of you being able to identify, like, okay, what are the virtues of the person that I see myself as? Maybe even take some time to sit down. I am, yes, yes, beautiful, yes. I was just finishing up the angel guidance. I went back in, basically. So you have to ask yourself, like, what is ultimately, what are the virtues, basically, of who you are in terms of God's vision of you? Thank you, beautiful. That's why you my girl. I appreciate you. Thank you. Oh, where would I be? But yeah, when you're navigating through the process of your devotion, you have to think about your devotion to self first and foremost. And when I say your devotion to self, I don't mean selfish, I mean selfful. Okay, and when you're filled, you are also filled with being of service to others as well, because God is obviously like, God rents you out basically to these people in these relationships. There's a price that has to be paid, and when those prices aren't paid, yes, God expects them to be able to kind of like pay up, and that's what karma's for as well. But at the same time, you have to be cognitive of where you are, betraying yourself. Unfortunately, you're betraying yourself at times in terms of the way that you're making these decisions. And again, this is where you are struggling with these patterns of indecision. Okay. So yeah, that part. I hope that that was useful for you. Now I'm really done. Thank you. Interesting. That was interesting, actually. We're going to do that all over again. Right. So we finished up with the Dalmatian crystal. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's so cute. It's like little chips. Like little chips. We've got the Dalmatian crystal because I was like, oh, I don't know. I wanted to like switch it up and do some like new crystals, some different crystals today. They were like, oh, let's just go with the little triplets that you've got and see, you know, what we can utilize to have this discussion. So I guess we found the appropriate stuff. For those of you, we've just finished reading the Dalmatian crystal. Definitely start thinking about what it is that you want to be able to release. I definitely would like to put a suggestion out there about the spirit of impatience and finding the balance with that. Um, and I would definitely also recommend finding the balance between the spirit of pride and humility, basically, because when God has to humble the spirit of pride, it's not fun. Depends on how big that ego grew. How much did you nurture it and cultivate it to grow? But we're going to be burning some stuff. So we've got our candle ready. We're going to finish up the other two readings, right? If you're not going to be in the space by the time I get to the reading, now that you've got your details on your crystal, put it out there, I guess. I'll try and get it on a notepad. Chaylee, I'm hoping is going to be able to sort of like help out there as well, and we can kind of work it that way. Because we're going to burn some ish. Okay. I did speak about the candle reading before I started. So if you guys want to go back and check that as well, because I've said it a couple of times already. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a quick turnaround, but it's going to come with a sacrifice of like chipping away at a couple pieces of ourselves, basically. Um, two identities are going to be transmuted during this climate, from what I could see. And they need to be chipped away. Other things are going to be coming into balance instead, but two definitely are going to be released and chipped away. It's going to be necessary throughout the process, from the way. So the chipping at the root, it has to do with self-identification. So a lot of this stuff about your self-identification is where you're going to need to find the balance between things. There's one way that you identify yourself versus the way that you're actually being represented. So the way that you're representing yourself may not be aligned as well. So some of those things are going to go through a shift, but we'll get to the candle in a little bit, right? We are going to go to the golden tiger eye. It's interesting. Golden tiger eye, guys. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can. I did it. Golden tiger eye. Hold on. There you go. That's harder than doing weights. Okay. So we're gonna go and do the same process. We're gonna start off with where you guys are during the process of this Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse. Let's make that very clear. So there's definitely going to be some shedding of layers here. And then we're going to look at the path that you're crossing. We'll also then take a look at how to work your light as you navigate through that path. We'll get your guidance from the universe, and then we'll look at the outcome if you're able to take heed, and then we'll take the angel guidance. Okay, so we're going to go into your stuff now, and see what's there for you, right? So for the golden tiger eye, guys, where are they as they navigate through the process? Interesting. So for you, I saw that this one for you was all about, because again, okay, so firstly, let's speak about the golden tiger eye, actually, interestingly enough. So for you guys, you're going to be navigating through solar plexus activation during this climate. As you're navigating through this solar, so these things are the things that are ultimately blocking our crown and our ability to basically like allow the energy to flow back down to the root. And it's a whole like it's a process. It has to keep it's like a purification process. Whenever we sort of like, you know, get blockages and stuff, then it prohibits the purification process basically. So with your crown chakra, sort of like ultimately getting activated during this type of transit, because again, the Pluto retrograde is going to be impacting it deeply, as well as just the element of the Scorpio dynamic. It's going to be digging up some of your deep subconscious files basically throughout the process of this. And you're going to find with your solar plexus as well, right? There's things that you are releasing in terms of pain. There are things that you are grieving. There are things for yourself as well where you feel like you've taken some defeats that you were shocked by. You were like, oh my God, I like really didn't see that one. And it's quite sad basically. And it's a little bit of a tragedy in terms of where the emotional processing is with that. And I think that that's potentially one of the things with you where you are actually learning a little bit of a lesson about persistence and consistency for you. I think your thing is inconsistency. From what they're saying to me with this is that you do stuff, but not to the degree of the expectation. So I'm sorry, they're being rude. They say they're not being rude, but I say they're being rude. Okay, so they're being direct. Actually, they're saying they're being direct, but they're saying like it's like farming a seed and you're kind of like expecting harvest during the wrong climate. basically. Okay, so they've put it nicely. They found nicer words. Thank you guys. Um, so yeah, during the process of like what you're navigating through, you have to be open to a little bit more of changing the way that you do things. And when I say changing the way that you do things, you're going to have to get a lot more strategic in terms of your planning. You're going to have to really make sure that in order to see progression, you have to make some tough choices. And some of those choices may see you at times be exhausted because that's just the climate that we're navigating through at the minute. No lie. But it's all about preparation and foresight. The more you prepare, the longer the foresight you have. Why? It doesn't mean that everything that you actually prepare for is going to go exactly as you intend. But what it does mean is that, okay, if there is a plan of action, then at least if something falls to the wayside, there's a contingency, right? The contingency is, okay, even if I didn't know that this thing was going to come up and now I'm going to have to navigate through this thing, I knew what I was supposed to be doing anyway. So how do I achieve that in this climate? Make sense? Right? Because that's ultimately the thing for you guys, is that there's a lot of tension and disagreement, too much conflict with you guys. It's not internal conflict, it's external conflict with you guys in terms of the way that you're doing things personally. Okay. You're causing disarray for other people, and potentially it feels like other people may be causing disarray for what it is that you're trying to manifest as well. But that's because there needs to be a little bit more of a collective discussion on what the expectations are and really identifying um, what it is that that person needs and what it is that you need, and how you guys can actually sort of like come to alliance with ultimately making like the right moves for everyone involved with the situation, right? The planning is going to be very, very important for you guys. They keep bringing me back to that for you guys. The planning is everything, because it doesn't matter how much the moon charges your solar plexus in activation for this climate that you're navigating through. They say that if you don't plan, you miss all of these opportunities that you didn't optimize for, basically, and you have to sit it in the next cycle. They're just being very direct. They're like, you'll have to sit it in the next cycle, which will probably be more than likely 9 months from now, coming into preparation for the next sort of like Scorpio full moon season, basically, is what they're saying. So make sure that you plan and make sure that you execute, because that's going to be ultimately the decision making factors as to what you see as far as the results with what you're manifesting, right? So let's go ahead and dive into it and see. Okay, so initially they were saying something about it's about moderation. It's about moderation, and you have to be purposeful and intentional when you are trying to figure out what it is that you're moderating. So, how much time do you have for this? How much capacity do you have for this? All of these factors of the situation um, is going to be a lot like, when you're tied up in a situation, you're just tied up in that situation. And that's how it has to be. Um, because that's just the climate that we're in terms of the contracts that are being set during this climate. Like, there are certain contracts that are being set during this climate that is really setting things up for stability. And it comes with very, how can I put it? Like, it requires for you personally, golden tiger eye selectors, right? For you personally, it requires you to be able to give your everything in that space and time that you're experiencing for that thing that you're experiencing. Give it in that situation for that period of time for everything that you're like. You have to be methodical and efficient. as you're kind of like navigating through the process during this type of climate, basically, right? Conserve and preserve your energy where you need to, but you have to understand that if okay, I'm going to put it like this: if you're preserving your energy for sleep, I'm not being funny, but your human's going to like check out someday. You technically need about 5 hours minimum to optimize in sleep. If you can put some meditation music on that allows for you to get to stage 3 sleep fairly quickly, you actually get to optimize a lot sooner within those 5 hours. 6 hours is actually really, really good sleep. If you can get to stage 3 and have 6 hours sleep, your body's like, whoa, I am fully charged, like so much energy, right? Um, so I'd say if you're kind of like, making decisions, oh, I feel like I want more sleep. I'm gonna say yes, it's okay to do a nap. But in this climate, you're going to have to plan everything, basically. You're going to have to plan everything. Because one of the things that they're showing me for you guys is that you might find yourself at times where you have a feeling like you are in that full on 10 of swords energy where you are just burnt out, where you've got nothing. Okay, where you're just like, oh my God, I'm dead. But you're not there really, obviously, but you know what I mean. Yeah, right? Because that's necessary for this type of climate. And it's just about planting the seeds initially. The expectation isn't necessarily for you to do this per se forever. This is just something that needs to be done for a period of time. Like we were speaking about the harvest season. Okay. This isn't harvest season, this is planting season. Okay. We're planting seeds. Okay. We can't grow what we haven't seeded. We haven't sowed any seeds in certain areas, or we haven't sowed the appropriate seeds, let me say. We haven't sowed the appropriate seeds accordingly to the expectations. So we're gonna have to reseed. Sometimes you have to like pick it up, and when it's kind of like starting to bud, when you've got the plant, you want to take it outdoors now, or you want to take it to like a bigger pot, a bigger area, because you want it to be able to grow into this magnificent tree and realize its potential to be able to like fulfill its beauty in nature, right? In order to do that, you have to sort of like do a lot of the groundwork, and it's going to take a lot of something. Okay, it's going to take a lot of something, they're saying. They're saying it's going to take a lot of something. It can't just be anything, but it's going to take a lot of some things. You're going to have to put your energy into some things and be strategical about how you do it. Okay. Right. We also have interesting again. We've got the 10 of the King of Swords energy. So it's all about like the clear thinking. Ultimately, the clear thinking is how we're going to be able to kind of like properly plan in order to be able to progress. Okay. Where are we? Those of us who would select the golden tiger eye crystal. Where are we for the Scorpio full moon transit? Come on, guys. Come on. No, I'm not accepting that. Sorry, guys. That's literally half the deck. Nobody's got time to read that, because you guys know how I read already as well. Like, it's so long-winded. Like, if I'm here reading a half the deck just to like get into the where we are, I'd forget the entire even place of where we are. But I'm going to ask you guys all of this, okay? All of this good stuff. Look at this, guys. There's all of these cards. All of these cards. Okay, y'all. It's definitely something to do with resistance to change. Interesting. For us, it's resistance to change. This may still be a control factor as well. Interesting. Okay, all of that stuff that you just gave me, give that to me in bullet points, please. Thank you. Reading all of that. Don't know who's reading all of that. Okay, thank you. I see we're making a good start. Making a good start. Okay, so this is about justice for us. Um, I chose crystal number 2 myself, so this is an interesting one to kind of like see how this plays out. But justice is a factor to do with this situation. It's about balancing the scales of things and making sure that truth and honor is at the core of everything that's actually taking place, and integrity is actually a crucial part of the process as well, because there's going to be a lot of quick movements, a lot of very, very quick movements, and you may doubt yourself from time to time. You may kind of lack confidence from time to time as you're navigating through this, because the justice that is being served is almost like you felt like you never actually would have gotten it. Oh my God. It's almost like you felt like you would never have gotten it. Like this justice that is being served up on a plate to you at the minute. It's things that you've been praying for, and God's actually asking you. Your wait hasn't necessarily been in vain. It's just that there's been a preparation process and you are actually being prepared, which is so beautiful. Okay, let's go and dive into it. Where are we? Give it to me raw, guys. I'm ready. Where are we as far as like us? Okay, thank you. That's a little better. A little better. I mean, it's not great, but we got four cards. Okay, interesting. Let's have a look and see. Oh, wow. Interesting. Sorry. Let me see. Firstly, we are dealing with access codes during this climate. We have the High Priest in the deck, which is basically like he's the same as the Hierophant basically in the tarot. And we also have the Wheel of the Year card as well. So this is talking about like the path, I guess, where we are in the climate of this Scorpio full moon, is that we're getting the access codes, or we're activating the access codes moving forward, of the areas where presently we're in the Eight of Swords energy, right? We're a little bit blinded by what we can't see and what we don't know. We're a little bit blinded basically by the unknown, these access keys that we don't necessarily have like to hand in the forefront of the conscious mind, right? Because they're instinctively and intuitively being like downloaded and computed as we go through our trigger points and our ascension points as we move through time and we get through life, like they're being activated, right? And we have to go through these like resistances in order to be able to access them. But it seems as though like we're going through this process where we're going to have like full on mental clarity about a lot of the things from the past where, it may have caused us confusion, or we may have felt like, oh, I wasn't too clear about that situation, or the areas where we lacked foresight. Now we shall have hindsight experiences of those things. Now those things are going to be able to sort of like come back round and really sort of like give us an opportunity to see why we had been closed off in those moments, and give us an opportunity as well to decide if we want to be closed in those instances as well. If we do want to walk away from certain situations, to be able to access these better transcended realities, right, of some of our past pains and traumas. Um, yeah, this is interesting. So, as we're kind of like in terms of where we are, a lot of us are dealing with these restrictions that are based on this thought process that, oh, you don't get me. Oh, you don't understand me. Oh, you don't feel what I feel. And it's like, no, they're not supposed to. Their journey is designed to be exactly what their journey is. They're not supposed to, and it's not right for you to project because you want them to feel. So it's not a case of, the hurting people now. It's really a case of learning how to be able to handle disappointments, how to be able to handle oneself when it's a case of, and this is what I spoke about as well, the future planning is going to be important because it's not going to go exactly as you thought, but at least if you plan, you have the contingency on, okay, how do I still manifest this now that this is a situation that I'm faced with dealing with, right? Sorry guys, I'm like feeling the energy flow through me. So as you move through the climate of some of these restrictions that you're causing to yourself, basically, because of things that you don't want to see, because of things that you don't want to accept, and because of things that you choose not to see as well. It's a choice. There's things that you're choosing not to see in yourself, and there's things that you're choosing not to see in others, but eventually you're going to have to pay the price for those things. Ignorance is only bliss when it's ignorance. When it is delusion, um, it's not going to serve much positive reflections. At the minute, God's doing something from what I can see astrologically in the collective. I feel like God's doing something when it comes to denial because that particular spirit is prohibiting a lot of other forces from being able to kind of like get to the places that they're trying to be, basically. Denial and lack of accountability is holding the narcissist spirit. It's not moving in the area that it needs to move within the collective to be able to grow, because we have our individual, like, demons or whatever that we process, and as we process that, it gets to go into the collective count, right? But as far as the spirit of narcissism, the spirit of narcissism is still very poignant. People don't necessarily understand when they move into narcissist mode, is usually when they are dealing with deep hurts, for one, but also dealing with situations where they're dealing with wanting a that instant gratification. Basically, it's usually when the human's in instant gratification mode that the narcissist dynamic or modality is likely to activate. I don't know what it is about that kind of pressure, but it usually tends to kind of like put the narcissist. The narcissist seems to be like always on the instant gratification thing. That's why a lot of the way in which it flares up is usually as an entitled presence, as an inconsiderate presence, as a very self-absorbing presence, very self-centered presence. Like it's all about the self. So it's really about finding that right balance within the heart chakra as well, because we've got like two dynamics of the heart chakra. We have the external aspects of the heart chakra, which radiates or emits a green light frequency, or the frequency that it emits would reflect in the color green, basically. And then you have the internal aspect of that, which is actually pink. And that represents self-love. The green represents collective love, and the pink represents the self-love. So it's a very difficult balance to find between loving self and being able to love others, because I know the challenge of doing that, right? It's sometimes it's just disappointing. And I think it's a case of us learning how to navigate through our disappointments, and the best way to be able to do that is to be able to plan and prepare. Okay, so let's have a little look and see what path we're crossing during this Scorpio full moon. What path are we crossing during this Scorpio full moon? What path are we crossing again? We're releasing indecision. Interesting. Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting, guys. Ah, that's interesting. So in this deck, this all tied up lady is equivalent to the Eight of Swords as well. But we're actually releasing that Eight of Swords energy. That's the path that we're on. So that's really interesting. We're releasing being all tied up, being all tense, being all on edge, right? The path that we're actually crossing, because we've got a few more cards here. So this is the undertone of the path. So this is the atmosphere. I'm going to read this. That's a sidebar, but the path that we're actually crossing is learning how to manage our depression, learning how to manage when things don't go our way, when things are not necessarily moving the way that we thought that it would. You know, for instance, you're trying to manifest something to 400%, but God's given you like a 40% because that's at the minute where you're at in terms of your ability to manifest that. You only have done like 40% of the seeding process, so you only get 40% dividends. And it may feel unfortunate at the time, but ultimately it's a process and you have to seed and harvest. But you, my love, are going to be navigating through some depressions, no lies. And when I say depressions, it's not necessarily going to be like long bouts of depressions. It's just going to be like little, it's like being held underwater for a second and you come back up and you can breathe. Because you are sort of like in a state where this card is actually sort of, I'd say this is kind of like the strength card in the tarot as well, right? So you are actually able to find your strength, find your confidence, find within yourself where it is that you can activate your inner charges that can navigate through whatever it is that the depression's telling you. Because when depression happens, it's usually telling you that you're under the pressures of a lot of stuff, basically. Hence the term deep pressure. Okay, depression, deep pressure. Um, so it's called deep pressure ion. So the ions within the atmosphere of this type of climate is very deep in your core of yourself and is actually trying to pull and transmute some of the blueprint, genetically speaking, on that, right? So with depression, whatever it is that is kind of like triggering your depression, whatever pressure you feel that you're under, those are the things that you're basically trying to fix. Your challenge, should you accept, my love, is to actually figure out what is the cheat code to be able to get what it is that you want. That depression is there to basically motivate you, but sometimes it actually does the opposite, unfortunately, because we don't know how to work with it, right? And then we just kind of like sit on it and sit in it and never really actually do anything about some of the stuff that depression's basically whispering to us because we get consumed by that entity, unfortunately. But the undertone of like what's going on with this situation as well, right, is that the healer of ages, so time, the time that we've kind of like had to move past some of the creative blockages of the past situations, it's definitely brought us to a place where now we're integrating. Now we've come to like completion almost. We've come to completion on letting a lot of those things go. That's ultimately what this undertone of the situations for. It's to help us to come to like integrating so that we can complete whatever it is that we've been kind of like leaving open previously, right? We're going to kind of release a lot of contracts, right? A lot of worldly contracts are going to be released. That's the intention during this climate for you guys. A lot of worldly contracts that have basically been causing a blockage to your own ability to manifest, because you've had to sort of like wait for the timing of the collective. So a lot of these things, and I think that this one has to do with the Pluto retrogrades, my love. So again, this is what I was saying. Obviously, the Scorpio full moon energy is moving with a lot of these like aspects of the universal energies kind of like charging it forward. So we're releasing contracts. A lot of worldly contracts are basically being diminished and defeated. Yeah, demon time this season is ultimately going to be faced with the inner lion and lioness. Okay, we're activating against our own core nature to basically even be against ourselves, right? Our demons are actually being held accountable during these types of climates as well. So just be mindful of it as well. Like I said, the depression may come in situations where you might find that certain relationships that are very meaningful take a sudden shift, obviously, because we're navigating through the Mercury retrograde energy. Anywho, you may also find as well that you may have situations where there's still a lot of confusion. You may be navigating through some chaos in the climate based on other people's confusion and lack of clarity and them sending out mixed signals to the universe, i.e., yourself, as a part of that collective as well. As you know, they're growing, you're obviously being collateral to their process, and some of those things might be a little bit depressing to navigate through. So, some of those atmospheres are definitely going through a universal shift. I will say that much. But I believe that these contracts that we're actually releasing is really going to take time as well for us to be able to see the benefits of actually releasing some of these contracts as well, because some of these contracts we've held them for a long time in terms of the way that they are. And when I say in terms of the way that they are, I mean, like sometimes you act like an emotional 3-year-old. It's time to grow up, basically. Maybe move that scale up to like an emotional 7-year-old, and we'll continue to keep growing bit by bit, basically, is what I mean. Okay. So these things are going to be going through like a significant shift as we move through the layers of everything, which is going to be interesting for us as we navigate all of this awesome stuff. Right? Again, sorry, I need to hydrate. That's a thing as well. Definitely keep hydrated during the Scorpio full moon. I actually even said it during the last the on Wednesday's live, I think. Have to keep hydrated because Scorpio it triggers deeply and intensely. So it is going to be shifting a lot of our physiology as well. Yeah, yeah, I think it was Wednesday. Thank you. Beautiful. Timing is like, oh my God, what day am I? I mean, I know what day I'm at, but you know what I mean at the same time as well. Like once I finish, because I have so many things that I'm doing in one day now, I lose sight of what day I'm doing what. So yeah, this is very, very interesting for me. But we're going to go and have a look at the guidance on how to work your light. Okay, let's have a look and see how do we work our light during this Scorpio full moon transit, navigating through this climate. Okay, interesting. This isn't about what lights you up. This isn't about that. This climate that you're navigating through, you need to understand in terms of like working your light. This is not about what lights you up per se. What it is about is being able to fill your cup. It's learning when to rest, refuel, and kind of like retreat at the same time as well. And asking yourself when you go into that retreat, asking yourself, what are you clinging on to? Because there's tower moments that are happening here. There's tower moments that are happening. There's sudden shifts, there's sudden changes in dynamics. There are disaster moments potentially that may sort of like show up to really be able to let us know where the situation actually is so that you can be poured into. It's like, think about you being cooked, right? And you know, like if you've got the fire too hot, like you'll boil out the water, basically. You'll boil out the water. out of the pot. But if you've got it on a moderate heat and you continue to sort of pour water in to the pot, if you're doing like a stew, for instance, random, but if you're doing like a stew, for instance, and you're like adding water, um, you want to be able to make sure that you're getting the right temperature, the right levels with the water as well, because you still want to have some flavor. Like God's literally cooking you basically for your next version of yourself. And it's almost like you have to look at where you need to go throughout the process of that. Sometimes the water does need to reduce, and sometimes the water does need to rise again to be able to get that right level of flavoring that's going to give it the, I guess, taste that it has, right? And it's like, okay, how do you land in people's mouths? Like, how do you taste to people? What's your attitude like? Some of those things are going to like come into questioning for you. And it's interesting because the undertone of what you're navigating through is really actually people are asking to see your heart. They're asking to really be able to see your authentic representation of yourself. They're asking you to like show who you are. I say they, I mean, the universe is using them as a, I guess, an access point, you know. The universe is using them to be able to ask the right questions, basically. And sometimes that ask might come as a trigger. Um, so that you can actually learn a little bit more about who you are in here, actually. Because there seems to be places within yourself as well where maybe because you're so busy trying to sort of like maintain your lion or lioness, you're kind of like finding yourself being a little bit detached, right? And that's probably how we came into this Eight of Swords energy in the first place, where we're bringing up all of these resistances and all of these self-imposed restrictions to the things that we say that we want, but because it's not showing up how we want it to show up, we're kind of blocking ourselves off from all of the ways that it keeps showing up in the way that we keep, because we keep asking for it, right? We keep asking for it, and then God gives us one, and then we ask for it again, so he gives us another one, and then we ask for it again, so he gives us another one, but we want it how we want it. And because we're not getting it how we want it, it's like we can't see it, basically. And we're not realizing it as a result of that. So that's going to come crashing down, basically, because God wants to be able to pour into us. And he wants to be able to pour into us by first showing us where we are in terms of our heart space. The clinging situation is definitely going to be challenged. So you have to manage, your expectations with people, places, and things, and even ideologies. I think that's definitely one of the things that is going to be shifting during this climate as well. You probably need to manage your philosophies around certain things in terms of your relationships. Like, oh, I didn't expect that from that person. Why not? What is it that they did that made you think that they weren't human enough to be able to do that? Like, those are some of the questions that the universe is going to be asking you. Basically, the universe is going to be reminding you of your ability to be human, as well as the human nature of your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Okay, so where we're going to be navigating through that, let's go ahead and see what we can get as far as universal guidance, right? Like, what's the message from the universe? Let's see. What's the message from the universe for us, guys, in navigating through this? Oh, that's interesting. That's what came up for the first lot as well. It's not necessarily for us, however, it's not necessarily about surrendering to the presence of love. That's not necessarily what this is about for us. And that's not what the universe is advising in terms of the dynamics of the situation. It's more something that is a contemplative thing. That's something that we need to contemplate on, where we are sort of like internally surrendering. Oh, wow. 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 Oh wow. Oh wow. Surrender is a thing. Um, okay, so we've got quite a few cards. Let me just make some room for them. Okay. Sorry. I'm trying to get some space going. Eventually, I'm going to be in the kitchen, guys. I think that was my thought process on how to navigate through the Martin thing. And I've got an island in there actually, which will probably make this a lot easier because I'm constantly just trying to like make space all the time. Yeah. I don't know though. We'll have to see. I'll try it in there and then you guys can let me know how we get on. But I'm looking forward to all of the awesome stuff that is to come as well. We've got another live tomorrow as well, guys. Don't forget, tomorrow we've got our free readings, which we usually have tonight. We've got those tomorrow, so you guys can tune in for that as well. Right. Interesting. So, for those of us who've chosen the Golden Tiger Eye, this is definitely this is all about spiritual recovery for us. This is about a spiritual victory. Yes, there's already a list started on that one. I can imagine. Thank you. Thank you, beautiful. It's very, very interesting. Okay, so and tomorrow as well, we're going to be doing like call-ins as well. We're going to start that a little bit earlier so that we can wrap up a little bit sooner as well. So we can like, you know, give Martin his piece as well, and I can maintain my own piece as well. We'll find the balance, guys. Very good. But yes, so the message from the universe for you guys, which is interesting, right? The universe is saying in the past, in terms of the way that life has unfolded for you, in every moment, the universe is conspiring to bring you toward right minded thinking and the energy of love. But you choose love only when you decide to. You choose love selectively, dependently on what the situation is. You choose love when it feels like you are basically in a place where, okay, this is going to serve me positively. That's it. Oh, Chelly saying, people are selfish pricks. They only offer support when it is a subject purely based on themselves. I really just despise everyone at this point, and I hate my heart. I'm done with it. Don't want it any longer. Oh, Jaylee, no, beautiful. Trust me, people are always going to do some people shit. Like seriously, it's unfortunate, but people are always going to do some people ish. I think, yeah, I don't know. Like it's funny because I'm literally just thinking about being an older sibling, and like that was where I started to learn, and being an older cousin as well. Like I had to, like I was one of the older cousins as well, so I just started to learn that sometimes life really is about other people, and that's literally how they see their whole thing. But I think when you're older, obviously you learn a lot of these attributes, how to be selfless. And I think for a lot of people, when they have the covering of like an older sibling or an older family member that is basically present and consistent in the relationship, it can put them in a state where they actually just become very self-serving, unfortunately. Oh, what, Bixby? What didn't you understand? Because I wasn't saying anything for you. I don't know what you're talking about. You need to stay out of my conversations. Beyond self-serving. No, I get that. I get that. I get that. I think even with the situation as well, I don't know. I find for myself, because I'm thinking about, I think about my situation with my little sister and my mom, kind of like, she has a perspective, but I'm like, technically she hasn't developed that spirit, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. Like, obviously, I feel like some people, when the circumstances hasn't really been, I guess, what it's needed to be. I tell my little sister all the time, I'm like, oh my God, you chose such a great life. I mean, you're going to have like issues where you're underdeveloped in certain areas because obviously, like, your life is so chilled and like comfortable, basically. Trust me, there's challenges. You know how it is for everyone. You have to come here to deal with some sort of challenge, right? But her challenges have been, you know, they've been copacetic to a fairly decent like life, actually. So yeah, I think when you go through certain dynamics, it does actually sort of like develop a certain type of character. And unfortunately, some people don't get the opportunity to go through that covering. I get upset over people's selfish behavior and then start questioning myself because they all think it's so normal. They do. They do. It is normal for them. That's the thing, and that was a conversation that I had to sort of like even have with my mum, where I had to put across like it is normal for her. Like if you are constantly being poured into, you don't actually know how to do a pouring into someone, unfortunately, because the dynamic has always put you in a position like this. So you don't even actually know how to position yourself to be in a position like this, to be able to pour out into somebody else. So it's unfortunate. This is why I'm learning how to sort of like find my right balances with certain things. But yeah, they just don't have the spirit, unfortunately. I don't know what else to say. They haven't been caught by the spirit, Shaylee. They haven't been caught by the spirit, unfortunately. They didn't learn how to develop that character, unfortunately. But as we navigate, as we navigate through like the present dynamics of the situations that we're going through, um, the guidance, because we haven't necessarily always chosen love in the past situations, basically, and we haven't always kept an open mind to love. In the present moments, the guidance for us is to sort of understand that true healing occurs when we give ourselves permission to feel whatever feelings live below the triggers, right? We are a spirit having a human experience, and we are here to get closer to love. Okay, but those feelings of like the triggers basically trigger the necessary discussions, pretty much. Because the triggers are a lot of things that we internalize that we don't necessarily discuss. This is why they're being triggered. That's why it's a trigger, actually, because it's a pain point, which means that it's something that has hurt us at one point in time or another. And even being in the moment of that experience, it can trigger past trauma, and serious PTSD can like really be present. So yeah, I think moving forward, it's not about choosing to learn through love, but it's actually knowing that the universe has your back moving forward. So when you think that you've surrendered already, be open and prepared to surrender more, because you're going to find a deeper meaning and personal purpose and growth, amid the discomfort of not necessarily having things go your way and not necessarily having people, I guess, show up in the way that you would hope, for them to show up, and not necessarily having people meet your expectations, because your expectations as well, are your expectations. You know what I mean? They're an expectation. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will be met, but it does mean that they do set the precedent for what it is that you want. And I think it's one of those situations where you do almost have to go through like a regretful but necessary transition as you're kind of like moving through some of these things as well, because you're going to have to find the right balance between letting yourself feel what you feel and actually being a spirit having a human experience. Because I think sometimes, when we feel the things that we feel, like we get so infixed in it, we identify with the feelings, we forget that we're actually like a spirit having the human experience, right? And that experience is what is happening in that moment, that feeling that we're having there and then. That's the human being able to kind of like interpret almost what is actually going on internally in situations, and what's actually going on in the intuitive tides of everything. So the discomfort is actually going to help you to grow. And, you know, the healing that is going to occur, it's not necessarily about you having to do too much or do too little. It really is about you knowing when to surrender. The universe is naturally going to show you every time you get like triggered. That's probably a really good time to consider surrendering. Basically, it's probably just a really good time to consider surrendering, because the moment that you do that, it allows for your ego to be able to go through an expansive process. Obviously, as a spirit, having your human experience, right? I think she means to say a soul as far as that read. But yeah, as a spirit having a human experience, the human is going through a process of being able to hold the capacity of what that spirit can do. And that spirit is basically unconditional love. It's a spark of unconditional love, basically, that is experiencing itself in a human body, right? Okay, hence life, spark of God, right? And as we kind of navigate through the process of our vessel, our human, and it seeks to basically expand itself to be able to withstand the capacity of our ability to love, we still have to learn how to navigate through, like, learning how to surrender, and actually realizing, okay, even though I feel like, I've already succeeded this, or I've already passed this, or I've already done that, like, there's still room for growth. There's no such thing as the perfect thing. It's usually the perfectly imperfect thing making the most sense, basically. That's kind of like how the universal laws work. Pretty much, which is weird, but because there can be no such thing as perfect, it has to be perfectly imperfect to some degree for it to actually make sense. But yeah, let's go ahead and see what is the outcome if we actually sort of, execute this guidance, really. Okay, guys, what is the outcome if we execute? Oh, Hierophant vibes. Again, I did say to you guys, the High Priest is actually the Hierophant in the tarot. So it's good to see that energy. So it's good to know that's the outcome. And again, it's about being able to kind of like move through the light and darker realms of reality. So knowing how to navigate through the unknown and the unconscious, and actually being able to find the right disciplines that's necessary. But it seems as though, I guess, with the dynamic of the outcome, it's really going to be mostly seen within the home environment. It's going to be mostly experienced within the home and community. So let's have a little bit of insight, because that's the area basically that it's going to be calling for, home and community. What is the outcome if we should take heed, guys? What's the outcome? As clearly as you can. Thank you. Okay, sorry. We've got a few cards here. Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay, interesting. Three major arcanas, guys. Okay, so we have the Empress in reverse, the Sun card in reverse, and we have the Death card in reverse. Okay, so the outcome for us, interestingly enough, is that we're actually going to learn. We're actually going to learn about the experience of being able to be collaborative and being able to come together. And we're going to learn that that's why certain things didn't work the first time around, because we weren't necessarily, we were basically taking on more than we can handle. Like, like how when God's dishing out assignments and stuff, and you were like basically like trying to be like the perfect student basically, and you're like, oh, I could do that, God. I got that one too. You got all your books, right? You got like 10 assignments here already, which you know that you're barely even going to be able to pass, but you're busy like, I got that one too. Me, me. So basically, a lot of the teamwork dynamics weren't necessarily sort of like taken into consideration. It was very much, how can I put it? The blockages that one was experiencing was down to self doubt as well, basically being a factor in the situation, which is what caused a lot of the teamwork. It could have been yourself or the other person who was navigating through doubt, and that aspect of the situation was completely disregarded. Like, it's like, okay, if it's the other person, for instance, it's like, oh well, nobody care about your doubt, like you better fix that. But it's an emotional wound. If they were actually like in a hospital, that would be equivalent to them basically needing like amputation on their leg. But because these are emotional wounds, we don't treat them accordingly. We're just like, oh, you just need to fix that, that isn't my problem. Yeah, let me know how you get on. um those types of dynamics are exactly the reason why certain things didn't necessarily manifest. Because especially if you're in relationships with people, their baggage is the exact thing that they're bringing to that relationship. And if you are in that relationship with that person, their baggage becomes your baggage, and both of you guys are rummaging through the baggage together. That's how that works. So the universe is going to bring some reunions. The universe is going to bring some reunions during this Scorpio full moon transit for you. Some of these reunions are going to be short lived. Some of these reunions, you'll basically kind of like see that nothing's changed or not much has changed, and the same issues that you had when you left the space are the very same issues that there are when you come back to the space, because you didn't actually do anything to change anything in the space, you just left it basically. Um, that part. So you are going to find that if you do as said, you're going to be given opportunities to learn how to surrender more. And that requires you being put in positions in situations where you once felt like you were so like hardened in certain situations, where you navigated through some temporary depression, and you'll probably experience some of those triggers show back up again during this cycle. Um, but moving forward, you can expect to feel some betrayal about certain ways that things will more than likely end again. Um, Again, because you're learning how to surrender your ego. And I feel like this is like a forecast warning of being able to say, stop, wait a minute. You're gonna kind of like go through a process of really dealing with some losses basically during this type of climate. And you have to be mindful about what losses you actually engage with, pretty much, because inevitable losses are coming, basically. And that's to do with relationships. This particular one is to do with relationships. So I feel like, yeah, being unable to move on from certain losses, it's because you didn't do shit. Respectfully, you just didn't do what was expected. You didn't do what was anticipated. Sorry, that's you have to. It Everything has a price, and if you don't pay the price, you can't expect to like get the full value of the thing that you wanted in the first place. You have to pay the price for it, and if you're not paying the price, you get like a half price, because that's what you're paying, basically. So that's what you get. Um, but yeah, there's going to be relationships and people coming back round, and they're literally where you left them, pretty much. And you have to understand that this is going to come with disappointments along the way. Now, you're going to have to decide this time, are you with the team or not? And if you are with the team, how can you be more of a team? Because previously, it seems as though there were creative blockages because there wasn't really much of a teamwork. It really was more, oh, this is what I want. Oh, well, this is what I want. Oh, well, this is what I want. Everybody was just on what they want, and nobody was actually willing to give in order to receive. So nobody got anything because you guys were on a standoff, basically, in that war, on that battlefield. You know, like in the Western, it's like everybody's on a standoff, and then they get their guns together, and then they're like, pew, 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 that kind of stuff. But nobody got to firing. Okay, everybody was just on a standoff because it was a case of, well, I want this, well, I want that, nothing happened. You mean to tell me that if you go shopping in the bargain bin, then you get bargain items? That part, Jaylee. That part, but I guess the universe is going to like bring up some reunions to basically kind of like help us navigate through the process of like this surrender for our personal growth, which is interesting. This is interesting. Let me close out the space ultimately with the angelic guidance for us, guys, the angel answers. Okay. What's the guidance for us for this Scorpio full moon? You don't necessarily need to get more information per se. This isn't necessarily what this is about for you. Okay. For you guys, they said don't listen to your intuition, okay? All the time. Don't listen to your intuition all the time. Ask your angels some of the time. Because your intuition basically, what we don't take into consideration as well is that our intuition is basically our emotional channel. It basically just it interprets emotions, not only emotions, but it interprets emotions. And if we're solely focusing on, you know, the intuition, shadows move through the intuition as well. You know, demons move through the intuition as well. And sometimes your intuition may kind of like put you in a position where you don't necessarily have the perspective to be able to interpret what it is that you're even sensing sometimes, because we're so disconnected from ourselves as a collective as well. Like, honestly, you'd be surprised how often I speak to people and they don't know why things are happening to them because they're not really that, I'm not going to say not really that connected, but they just haven't taken the time to be that cognitive of what's going on around them in their surroundings, really. So everything seems like a surprise. It's always a shock. But the guidance for you is to remain positive. Ask your angels at the right time. Listen to your intuition some of the time, but make sure that you're not necessarily sort of like solely taking your intuition as you lining up the facts. Basically, you need to also get some information, some downloads as well from a higher state of consciousness to be able to allow you to make an informed decision for some of the stuff that you're trying to manifest as far as this planning ahead. Because technically the angels, they have foresight. They are more connected to God's vision than we are, because we can only see in the physical reality a lot of the times. They can see in spirit a lot of the times. I'm like, guys, I'll ask about certain situations because I'm like, they have access to be able to see those things in spirit, right? They see timelines way before we even see timelines. Okay. So it's just one of those things where I think we have to be mindful of, you know, how we're letting the intuition guide us. I think that that's one of the things that they're saying. Like, we can't just say, oh, well, I feel like this, so this is what I'm going to do. Maybe take some time to think about it and let your guides pray on it, okay? And let God deliver whatever guidance he needs to deliver through your angels, through your support team, through your network, through your team and community of your spiritual like source and resources. Okay. But yeah, I hope that that was useful for you guys. It's going to be an interesting one. as per usual. It's definitely going to be an interesting one, right? I'm going to pack up the deck now, and then we're going to do this all again for the red jasper crystal. Dang, it's so tiny. I couldn't even pick it up, guys. That's so funny. How are you guys finding the Scorpio full moon energy so far? How does it feel to you guys? Why horrid, Shaylee? Why horrid? Okay, so we have. Sorry, I'm gonna take a drink first because I need to. I've noticed it's a. Oh, Daniel ended up being a fogtard again. Hey, Sammy, how are you doing, beautiful? We're just closing up. We've got the final crystal to read for, and then we're going to sort of close out space. How are you doing, beautiful? How's the Scorpio full moon eclipse treating you? Chaley says, I've noticed it's a pattern with him. Every time we start to get close, he self-destructs. Yeah, yeah. He might have some abandonment issues. Self-sabotage is naturally a side effect of abandonment wounds. So it can be a little bit crazy sometimes. Oh, that's tricky. Does that mean that there's kind of been a disconnect again? Sorry, guys, I am parched. That part, right? Yeah, I'm sick of his crap getting all over me. Oh, beautiful. I know. I guess, obviously, we spoke about the reunions and, still having to work from where the aspect of the relationship was versus where we'd ideally like it to be, which is unfortunate. Sorry, I'm seeing like Luna literally just there, like as I peek out, it's like she hears me talking about her. She's like, "Oh, are you talking about me?" I'm like, "Yeah, girl, you looking cute tonight." Oh, dude. We were doing really good and getting closer again. Yeah, naturally that would scare when you've got abandonment issues. You tend to have or develop anxious attachment styles when you have abandonment wounds, actually. We're going to go into crystal number 3, interestingly enough. Or maybe we just get close in my head and I'm delusional. I think that there's a closeness that starts to formulate. There's a bond that's being built, but I think sometimes that kind of closeness does scare some people off when they've got abandonment wounds. Sorry, I'm like trying to. The red jasper crystal. There we go. Okay. So we've got the red jasper. And sort of reading for this one, right? Oh, if there's anything that I'd say to you guys who've chosen like crystal number 2 is that what I'd say for you guys is I don't necessarily I'd say you probably want to release the spirit of inconsistency um, and really optimize on the spirit of organization, the spirit of yeah, organization and planning. Yeah. So crystal number 3, red jasper, right? Here we are with it. Here we are with it. There we go. So the timestamp is probably now, because I was saying about the previous one, the thing that I'd say that they need to like release. But the timestamp is now for the red jasper, right? With the red jasper, I'd say like obviously you guys are navigating through root chakra, directly root chakra activation during this Scorpio full moon climate. That part, Jaylee. That part. Root chakra activation, right? With this type of with this type of situation, with the with the root chakra sort of activation that you're going to be getting during this climate, is going to really require you to stay in the spirit of optimism. When you move into the spirit of bitchiness and bitchy tendencies, it's actually going to manifest the exact same outcomes for you, because you're telling this story that the universe is kind of like against you, basically, in your like deep in your core, in your root chakra, basically, and you identify with this black sheep story. And because of your identification with that narrative, you continue to perpetuate a lot of cycles that put you in a position of being the underdog. When you are moving into this place that actually God is going to take you, what's going to happen is that you are going to have some situations where there isn't necessarily much clarity, but you're going to have to stand firm in your faith. And I think that the tendency to be a little bit hesitant with that is exactly the reason why this Scorpio full moon is going to be so transformational in your particular experience. There's a lot of things that you're breaking free from during this climate, and some of those things is yourself, your tendency to basically like burn yourself out, your tendency to kind of experience this lack of progress because you're not giving yourself any room to actually progress, my love, unfortunately. The way that they're saying it to me, it's like you're actually pretty lazy, for lack of a better way of putting it. So when I say lazy, that means you're navigating through contracts with the spirit of procrastination. There are certain things that you want to do, you speak about doing, and you pretty much just kind of you don't seem to be able to get it together. It's kind of like that page of swords energy in reverse, where it's like broken promises, basically, talk and no action. So the dynamics that you're actually going to be going through is the transition, right? It's a transition that's actually going to really take you through the place where it's interesting, because they're showing me that you could have persevered like even more a long time ago. You actually just held yourself back. That's what they're showing me with this situation. The root chakra being off balance in the way that it is. They're just like, technically speaking, like this thing could move like very, very quickly, very, very like, I wouldn't say overnight, but it feels like it's something that can have like a very quick turnaround. Basically, it's a very big wave that's kind of like coming in that sense. But it seems as though the way that you kind of like speak about the your identifications, basically, that's one of the situations that they're sort of like putting across. Yeah. Yeah. They're saying with the root chakra, it's all about like where we place value, and I think that that's one of the things that's kind of like throwing the actual root chakra off balance. We're placing values in the, I wouldn't say the wrong places, but those aren't the places that's going to basically get the results that we want. We're placing value in places that are very superficial, basically. And because we're placing value in those superficial places, we're getting superficial results. Yeah, those are the setbacks to the ideas. Those are the setbacks to the direction that you're trying to go in. Those are the places where the spirit of pessimism comes up to battle the spirit of optimism, to kind of like really show you where you are with the situation, basically. And you're going to learn where you actually are. That part, right? Let's go ahead and unpack everything, because I'm gonna try and see if I can close out the space and go and see my bae. I haven't spoken to him all day, actually. That's how bad like my timing is getting, like all day. So yeah. What is the, where are we? Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, but it's late. It can start to grow like distance, basically, in this type of dynamic in climate. What they're showing me, I guess, the where you are, you're going to sort of like definitely be navigating through some Five of Cups vibes as well. Oh my God, it came out again. Literally, it was like upright at the bottom of the deck. So the undertone of it was like the Five of Cups. And then it actually came out that, like, where you are, as far as like where you are internally and navigating through things during the Scorpio full moon transit, you're actually very much in that Five of Cups energy in reverse. You're kind of like moving on from like the spilt milk that you were crying over. I mean, you realized, you sat there, you cried for a little bit. You're like, oh my God, let's go. And then you were like, oh my God, I've still got stuff to do. Let me just get up and go and get on with the stuff that I've got to do, right? And as you continue to do that, you're kind of like coming to this place where you can accept what it is, where you are, and actually even move into a place of forgiveness for some of the decisions that has been made along the way. Like, you start to sort of like see, okay, I see why that happened. I see why that happened. And I'm going to make the conscious choice to be, forgiving in the situation, for whatever reasons you find fit in your particular circumstances. Because they're saying to me, for some people, it's like they're forgiving other people for like other people's sake. It's like, oh, I'm going to forgive you because really I actually like that person, and the dynamics with you is basically causing a strain with my relationship with that person, so I'm going to forgive you. I see for other people, it really is a case where they're like, oh, I'm going to choose to forgive myself. That was a poor decision. That's for other people. And then for some people as well, I'm seeing that it's one of those situations where they have like hordes of people that they need to forgive, because they have basically just been holding on to a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of sorrow, a whole bunch of pain and heartbreak. So they have a lot that they're actually sort of like moving on from. And there's a lot of forgiveness that's actually being poured out during this climate for them as well. And I think obviously it's one of those things where it's kind of like forgiveness for the things that didn't necessarily work in your favor, but they worked in the favor of others, basically. The red jasper crystal, you guys are basically going back into restoring your narrative about the black sheep syndrome that you're navigating through, because these things, it was just how you chose to tell the story about what you experienced. What you experienced was just what you experienced. Your human developed a story to be able to rationalize the experience that it was going through, so that it can find some fairness in the experience for itself, right? Because its primitive instincts were being activated. But the reality is, life was just lifing because that's what life does. And in nature, that's just the way that nature rolls, unfortunately. So when we take a lot of the stuff personal that is there for our personal growth and development, it can manifest into a presence in spirit like the black sheep who never has anything going good for it or ever really has life basically reflecting any positives back to it. It's constant. It's a constant fight between the spirit of optimism and pessimism when the black sheep syndrome is in activation. It's very difficult to stay in balance. Here's what I found on the internet. Bixby went and found some black sheep stuff. Uncountable repressed desires, unfulfilled dreams, the frustrated talents of our ancestors. That's what Bixby got. Okay? Bixby's trying to friend me. Bixby's trying to, like, get on my side. So I think that Bixby's on my side. You know how it is. That's how it's supposed to work. They're supposed to friend you first so that they can, like, get in there, and then you feel like, oh my God, Bixby, I can tell you anything and everything. Girl. Anywho. But yeah, what I was saying, like with the black sheep syndrome, like it's a real thing though. Like serious ish. Like a lot of the black sheep syndrome as well is manifested not only from our own story, but a lot of the times the story that we're telling is basically the story of our ancestors. So it's a lot of the, oh my God, like the way in which my nan tells stories. Oh, whenever I find myself telling certain stories, I start to laugh at myself. I've gotten into the habit as of recent where I laugh at myself because I'm like, oh my God, that's my nan's demon. What am I doing? This is like her space of how she processes and deals with reality and stuff like that. What I see here is that I actually did this, which is what caused that. And this is why I got the outcome here, because I can take accountability for the part that I'm playing in my manifesting. And we have to take into consideration that though our ancestors' baggage is and was what it was, um, it's not even oh, we're here to kind of like right their wrongs or we're here to change that. It's just facts. Like karma's paid itself off generation after generation after generation. So your purpose is that's what you're here for, basically. So a lot of the black sheep syndrome dynamic, when that starts to manifest, it usually is during certain astrological transits as well. I'll say that much. It's a natural behavior. I'm not going to lie. It's definitely learned and taught behavior. Usually, a lot of the times, it's from the maternal figures or the feminine in the space around us as children, because they're the ones who actually help us with our emotional processing. And the black sheep syndrome is usually developed from a underdeveloped spirit of emotional management, basically. When it feels like the odds are stacked against a person and then they get triggered in a certain dynamic, the human starts to tell this story that the odds are against them, which is true. The odds are against them. That's what I mean. Like it's that's these are like doubt's job. These are fear's job. Like doubt is basically letting you know that the odds are against you. That's what it's supposed to do. And then you're supposed to figure out how to navigate through those odds to get to a better place. That's why it then activates this battle between the spirit of optimism and the spirit of pessimism, because the spirit of optimism is going to be the driving force moving forward, but the spirit of pessimism is going to be the constant in the now situation. It's going to basically create more of what it already is experiencing. So yeah, for those of us who've chosen crystal number 3, the red jasper crystal, you are navigating through deep feelings of resentment, deep feelings of sort of hate. And I think that you've pacified a lot of your anger over the years as well, which is probably why this Scorpio full moon energy is kind of looking and seeming the way that it is. But yeah, you're navigating through 5 of Cups energy in reverse, and the undertone of that is the wheel of the year, which means that there's a lack of closure. So you're starting to accept the things that haven't necessarily closed out, and you're probably perhaps going to get some insight and clarity on the why they haven't necessarily closed out. Okay. Let's have a look at the path that you're crossing so that we can get some clarity on it as well. The path that you're crossing is wanting a break, wanting to rest, wanting to sort of come back to the space, right? Again, there's a contract in place. The path that you're crossing is basically what you came here to do in the first place, what you were designed for, what your human had been equipped for. Contracts are about to be fulfilled, interestingly enough. Let's have a little look. It's so funny because all of these have undertones of the major arcanas, like major life transitions are taking place during this cycle. Let's just say that first and foremost. What path are my awesome folks who will pick the red jasper crossing? What path are they crossing? As clearly as you can. Thank you. Blossoming abundance, right? Blossoming abundance. And what this is basically saying to you is that abundance is a process. When we talk about abundance, we usually would anticipate that, oh, that's just a positive thing. But abundance means any and everything. It doesn't mean only positive. It means that you have to go through a challenge. That's the beauty of abundance, right? It doesn't favor, it simply aligns accordingly, right? So the abundance is the fact that you have plentiful decisions and there's so many options available to you, but the option that you're actually going to get is actually what you're vibrating at. And when I say what you're vibrating at, to really put it into perspective for you, it's okay. If you're saying, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this, well, guess what? You're not. That's how that works. I can't remember what it is. The other day when I was going into work, I actually packed my laptop before I went to bed the night before because I didn't want to be late because of my laptop or anything to do with my laptop, right? Guess what happened the next day? Got ready, was about to leave out, was going to make it in on time, literally was going to be able to get there by the skin of my teeth. But then Murphy's Law activated. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Guess what went wrong? Forgot the bag that I packed the laptop and everything. Okay? That part, right? So abundance is really like whatever you desire. And sometimes you might not necessarily desire something, but your fear of that manifesting may be the very like vibration of a desire, because your desire is to not have that experience happen. But again, even though your desire is to not have that experience happen, if that's your focus, now you're manifesting from the law of repulsion. That part. Okay. So I didn't take into consideration, I packed the laptop the night before and everything like that, but I didn't take into consideration, oh, girl, you need to remember the laptop, like when you leave. So I left my house and I had to come back to my house to get my laptop. And I got to work like 45 minutes late, basically. We had to have a whole discussion about that today as well, which was really, really interesting. Yeah, it was good to have that conversation. I think that it was necessary. Yeah, for myself as well, to be able to sort of like understand the expectations of it all. But that was like a rookie mistake. I knew that the night when I packed it before, even the moment when I let that thought through, I should have just gone ahead and put the laptop in the car. So now, actually, now that's what I've learned in terms of like Murphy's Law. Put the laptop in the car the night before if I do pack the bag. Because the thing that could likely happen is the fact that I actually have a forgetful nature and I didn't take that into consideration. So I would need to optimize that. And ain't no way your girl's going to be able to optimize that in time. Okay. I'm a whole Pisces. I'm flaky AF. Okay. Can I spend on new clothes? You probably have to ask me a question on that in a little bit, beautiful. Because they're literally sort of like, I can feel even the channel coming through on the channeling. So they're saying with the path that we're crossing, we're learning about the blossoming of abundance and how abundance is actually uh, embedded in how it's weaved, basically, the intricate details of how it's actually weaved. We're releasing a lot of financial constraints during this climate, right? During this type of climate, we are releasing a lot of financial constraints, which is going to help again because we're doing root chakra. The root chakra does it basically I don't want to say control, but it's connected, basically it's connected to our ability to manifest material gains and financial stability. So with the root chakra and being able, we're actually navigating through the with the actual, I can imagine, beautiful, my human's the same sometimes as well. She literally just shuts down half the time involuntarily. But with the situation, right, with this abundance factor, like the universe is basically conspiring to get you through this financial constraints that you're navigating through. And there is an abundant blessing that's there for you, but it's all about your thought process and the way in which you are thinking about things and the way in which you're doing things as well. Your emotion seems to be basically your hindrance in terms of your process, like your emotional plane seems to be the factor for you. Obviously, for other guys, we had like their behaviors, we had their thought process, but your emotional tide seems to be the major issue for you because depending on what you're feeling emotionally, that will basically determine your vision on the situation. Like if you're feeling a certain type of way, it's like, oh my God, if you had a positive vision before, it's like, oh, that's torn down. It's like the perfect vision didn't even exist in the first place. So as you're navigating through this releasing of this financial constraint, so you can kind of like free up your capacity, right, to be able to sort of like tap into your door of spirit, that's going to give you the abundance you need to be able to release your spirit of anxiety to restore your root chakra back to full balance, right? There you go. Releasing financial constraints to make a door for spirit so that you can release the spirit of anxiety and restore your root chakra. Okay. Archangel Michael, we had a discussion about this on Wednesday as well. If you're struggling with your root chakra and the imbalances there, Archangel Michael's really good for that because Lord knows the crown chakra is definitely off in the process, right? The crown chakra is what's off, which is why the root chakra is actually imbalanced, basically. The way in which the crown is actually processing information is throwing the root chakra off. So the two needs to come into cohesion with each other. We're going to go through a releasing ceremony after this as well, but I'd say again, stick anything out there that you'd like us to sort of burn if you're not going to be here for the next, I want to say about 30 to 40 minutes, because that seems to be the timestamp that I'm moving on at the minute, interestingly enough. Sorry. We're going to figure out how to work our light during this type of climate, just so that we can see, okay, so this class is about boundaries. This class is about boundaries, guys. And I think that this may be boundaries, firstly, because we think about boundaries and setting boundaries with other people, but boundaries is actually also equally just as important for ourselves. Okay. How do we work our light during this type of climate? Okay. Okay. The guidance on how to work your light is, okay, this isn't necessarily a case of, longing for home or belonging any particular where. This isn't about light working in terms of what it is that you're navigating through, because where these things had been done previously, it's not even like, oh, I can look at that situation for how that helped my light to grow. Like, it's like, shit, man, like that really hurt my feelings. But what it did do is that it helped you to activate, it helped you to awaken, it helped you to, you know, unlock that genetic coding that was going to be able to see you do the integration that was necessary at that point. You know, there are certain situations, maybe in home situations, where you felt like you were mistreated, unheard, disrespected, violated. And those things actually obviously helped for your activation and your awakening in these presence moments as you're navigating through stuff, because that's what's going to teach you how to protect yourself. You will know how to protect yourself because you've already went through a lot of those things. You've already gone through the process of a lot of these things that are basically resurfacing, because that's what they are ultimately. They are simply resurfacing. They will feel real and new every time that they do. It's like, oh, why is this here again? Or, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to be learning from this, or what's this situation about? But it's like, you've actually been dealing with this situation for a long time. That's what the cycle of this being in reverse, this Five of Cup being in reverse is about. It's giving you an opportunity to pour out some of the things that you've been holding on to. So you're learning how to cut cords so that you can retrieve your soul. You're learning how to call back your power. You're learning how to be able to, you know, balance within yourself where you need to be raising your vibration for yourself, and also where you need to be, I guess, reflecting a raised vibration so that others can utilize you as an example of what to do in situations, and perhaps what not to do in certain situations as well. Um, yeah, I think with the dynamic, if you can trust your path as you're navigating through the process, the protection, the things you need to protect yourself from, the things you need to protect yourself about, they will reveal themselves to you. They will give you insight, and they will actually give you an opportunity to go through your genetic activation and awakening, right? You'll almost feel the presence of your activation for some of you as well. Not all of you guys. It depends on how connected you are to your vessel at this point. But yeah, a lot of the stuff was home training or lack thereof. Everything that you had and experienced at home was training you for some of these um, vibrations that are going to be like lifted as you navigate through the process. And you are actually going to become the oracle of your own experience, where you are not only prophesying, but you are living in your state of precognition, because you're constantly planning, progressing, and actually making lucrative decisions for yourself that's going to allow for you to release some of your financial constraints. Okay, right. What is the message from the universe as they navigate, as we navigate, guys? What's the message from the universe? Okay. This is about understanding that the moment we embrace the peace within and surrender the outcome, that's the moment that the universe can truly get to work, right? Because a lot of the times it's like I said to you guys, I even actually said that to you guys outright. It's so funny because the cards continue to like reiterate things that I'm saying, because that's literally what they're saying with the situation. It's the things that we basically want to go our way that we're so resistant about, pretty much. Okay, interesting. Again, we have the same sort of like theme as far as the undertone of this dynamic. I don't know if you guys can see the card. When I think I've surrendered, I surrender more. So even for you guys, just like the second pile, the third pile is also going to be going through a process where you're surrendering as well. Okay, you're going to be going through a process where you're expanding. You're going to be going through a process where your ego is going to be evolving. It's going to be evolving. Your third eye as well is going to be going through a process of forgiveness, like I mentioned. So it's about letting go of the shadow of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love, right? But you're not necessarily going to be doing that externally. It's something that you're going to be doing internally. So that's someone that you need to be seeing um, for the first time with the eyes of love is yourself. Like, you need to be living in a place of like really understanding. So as you go through this activation, you're going to get to this place where you're going to be able to love who you are from inside of yourself, to be able to kind of like express that externally as well. There's a lot of yourself that actually isn't best pleased with you. Actually, you seem to be at odds with yourself in a lot of different ways, and I think that that's what the surrendering process is actually going to be for you. When you go through this process of being able to surrender and let go and forgive, um, it's going to be interesting for you to let yourself actually be comfortable with yourself, because there's so much inner conflict with, um, you know, oh, I don't necessarily like this about myself, or I don't like that about myself, or I'm not comfortable with this about myself, or I don't think that this is the best thing. Like, you have your own insecurity. So this black sheep thing that keeps like coming up and regurgitating and going on and on and on and going over and over and over, it's actually stemming from a place of self-hate, to be honest with you. For some people, it's minuscule, and for others, it's actually very major, and it's something that you really want to have to an opportunity to sit and have a conversation with yourself about. And when I say self-hate, what do I mean by that? So I mean that you're actually in a position where you continue to perpetuate a lot of these things, where you start to doubt yourself now. And that's what's actually causing the self-hate, because you're talking a lot of these negative things over your life, and they're manifesting as a result, because you're speaking of them negatively, and wholeheartedly, like with your whole chest. And your belief system actually sort of like embedded into it as well. And that's what's activating a lot of these timelines. But yeah, it's really about learning how to let go of the shadow of the past, so that you can allow for yourself to see yourself beyond what your past experiences have been, to see yourself beyond what your now experiences even are. Your today is actually your past for tomorrow. Okay. You have to be willing to allow for yourself to open up every single day, because it's important. Facts. It's important. And if you actually don't necessarily allow for yourself to be as open as you need to be, then God can't pour everything into you that you want. It just doesn't work like that. You need a bigger pot for that, my love. But what is the outcome should they take heed of the guidance from the universe and all of the above? Okay, we've got the Fool. So you would actually be experiencing a lot of spontaneous, sporadic moments where you get these new beginnings that start because of you being sort of spontaneously impulsive in situations, right? Let's have a look. Oh, interesting. The outcome for you, should you take heed, is Four of Pentacles energy. We've got that Four of Pentacles energy, and the actual Three of Wands at the undertone of it. So it really is about bringing security. You're able to bring security into manifestation, provided that you can actually plan. You will see progression. So that will be the outcome for you if you're actually able to execute this dynamic based on what the universe is kind of advising. And we already sort of like discussed that. So it feels like it's a reiteration of what was already said in that context, because I feel like that's pretty much everything that was outlined with the story of this, right? Abundance is the undertone of the guidance, right? We're being guided on abundance in this dynamic. So we're going to check and see what the angel guidance for us is, the angelic guidance. Again, this isn't necessarily about listening to our intuition over the course of the next few months, because you're actually navigating through a process over the course of the next few months where you're going to be choosing a new direction. And this isn't necessarily a direction that you visited before per se in physical life. Obviously, you're playing it out in linear time, but this is a new path that you're sort of going on. And as you navigate through that path, over the course of the next few months, there's going to be a new decision, a new direction sort of outlaid for you. And you will have to communicate clearly. It's not necessarily about, any no's, because you won't have any major sort of like happy changes per se, but it is up to you to help improve the situation. Okay. Over the course of the next few months. So do sort of keep that in mind. I'd say for you guys, looking at it, the spirit of resentment is probably something that you guys need to let go of and make room for the presence of the spirit of forgiveness. And really, also, what I would say is let go of poverty consciousness and implement abundance mindset. I think that that would definitely do you guys some good, basically being in the situation. Okay. Um, yeah, yeah. That's pretty much everything that they have to say on the situation. We're going to go ahead and I don't know if you guys want to put out there what it is that you guys want to surrender or release. I'm going to burn some ish. I didn't actually even take my oh, I've got a little thingy here actually. Let me know. You mentioned you're sick of a few things as well, Chaley. Let's see. You were saying some stuff as well. I can't see it. I keep trying and it pisses me off. I got it. The universe wants me dead. Correct, because I have no desire or motivation to do anything they want me to do. It's not that they want you to do anything. That's what you were designed for. Like, it's so funny to me, like, when we kind of like hit back, because I do the same thing as well. And then they look at me and they're like, you guys actually like think that I'm supposed, like, I'm forcing you to do something because I need you to do it. It's like, no, that's what you were designed for, actually. In actual fact, and then they make me feel dumb. Then they make me feel dumb for that moment, to be honest with you, which is always very interesting. Okay, what else did you say? Abundance is love, and that has never been here. Oh no, there's been experiences. There's been experiences. I think Jesus did a really good job at trying to sort of like Prophet Isa. He did a really good job at being able to kind of like give mankind an opportunity to understand how to love abundantly, I guess. But he was one of the last. Can I spend 300 on new clothes? I don't know. Can you spend 300 on new clothes? Is it in the budget? I don't think that this is the climate to do it if it's actually going to come with like major consequences. So basically, if you're using the spirit of carelessness, so if you know you've got other things that you could actually prioritize with that money, that's probably not the best idea, basically, because you're gonna pay for that price, pretty much. Okay. In this type of climate, you'll probably pay for it hard as well. That's another thing. Like the more stubborn we are, we actually create our own like ricocheting effects, basically. So that's what happens. We get stubborn, and the thing starts to ricochet because that's just what we've manifested, unfortunately. My human is like, no, don't want to hear it. Yeah, that part. My emotions are absolutely a hindrance. I'm sick of them. Girl, I'm like literally trying to navigate through my own anxieties. So I hear you on that. I hear you on that one. So I am, because I chose crystal number 2. If I can remember, what was the whole point of it? Crystal number 2 was the, oh God, I'm trying to remember what I was like guided on so I know what to release. I don't remember. If there's anything that you want to release, definitely put it out in the chat. And I'm gonna make a note on it because I don't know if I don't want to mess around with my printer and spend a long bunch of time here trying to sort out the printing situation. I'll just write it down. I'll probably try and do that again when Mercury is in retrograde, basically. The less machinery that I have to sort of like utilize in navigating through this space, the better. But yeah, it's weird. I want to release my heart and burn it. Oh, dude. Okay, let's do that. Let's figure out how to be able to do that in terms of heartbreak, because I don't think the process can kind of compute not necessarily having a heart. So we are going to dive in. Right? Yeah, it turned me into a narcissist. Thank you. Oh God. Listen, we have enough of them running around. That spirit is just not learning, Cheney. It just doesn't seem to be growing. It's literally stuck at 2. It doesn't seem to be growing past the age of 2. It's so frustrating, I'm sure, for everyone, like for all the guides. Like I was getting feedback the other day from God on the process of how everything's going, because we were like talking some plans for like future stuff and future timelines, like a good 5 to 7 years from now. And it was just like, oh God, the spirit of narcissism is definitely one of those spirits that we are struggling with within the collective. We've always struggled with that spirit, unfortunately. Or sociopath. Either one will do just fine. Well, the sociopath. I mean, the sociopath is born, I guess, that way. I'd have to sort of work on the neurology to get sociopath activation. The emotions I can do for the most part. I'm like literally trying to make sure, because there's so many decks that was out. You know, when you're trying to think, oh, what deck goes in what thing, because there's so many. God. But this was a long one. I see somebody was in the space and they actually left, I think, and took their life with them. When I said that I was going to be in here for a little bit longer, basically, till I get to this point. But patience is a virtue. I bet they got the first card where their patience wasn't necessarily on point. That's too funny, actually. I think they might have needed definitely the first card. I can't remember what the second was, actually. Solar plexus. What was it? I literally can't. I can't remember. It's so weird. That's what I mean about the channeling stuff. Like I literally, you guys think I'm joking. Like I literally can't remember half the stuff. I retain what I'm supposed to remember, and everything else just flows because it's supposed to. So I actually don't even remember what I was going to be releasing for the season. Yeah. I can't remember. Inconsistency. I'm releasing the spirit of inconsistency and activating the spirit of consistency. Okay, yeah. Because that was the thing with the second one, actually. Oh, I like my parchment paper instead. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Your girl's going to go and get herself together. I need my parchment paper to write the stuff down, and I need a glass jar basically to burn, baby, burn. Burn, baby, burn. But I've got all of that. Just bear with me. Give me 2 secs, guys. Sorry. Talk amongst yourselves. I think there's a couple of you guys in here. Inconsistency was the third. Oh, okay. What was the second? What was the second? I know inconsistency was the third. What was the second? I can't remember. Second was patience? No, I think the first was patience. Because I remember, what was the card for the first? Oh, this is so thing. Anyways, I'm going to go and get the stuff and get set up so that we can burn some stuff. Don't worry. I got y'all. Let's see. Okay, and then I'm going to get some parchment. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we got the jar. We've got the candle. Let me know what you guys, yeah. Yes, please, beautiful. I'm like, literally, I'm so confused. I did all that channeling and I don't even remember what I channeled. But my guides, they know that's how I am. They don't take it personal. Shit. They know that they're like working with a human with her own quirks. We know the team we're on, that part. Right? Okay. So I hope that only beings of the purest and highest of vibrations are present to provide us with the service, compassion, and fortitude needed for the releasing. I ask that we may be used and optimized as vessels of divinity, connected to the oneness that is source. Ashe. Awesome. Right. So Chaley wants a new heart. How do we word that for the release? Because girl, that would literally like take you through a whole 3 of Swords experience to be able to get you a new heart. You'd have to like literally break your heart a million places and a million pieces to be able to get a new one, girl. Solar plexus. Okay, what was going on with the solar plexus situation? No. Solar plexus, and then oh my god, I can't believe I lost it. No, it really actually was. It was inconsistency. They're saying to me it was inconsistency. The third one was actually releasing the spirit of resentment to make way for the spirit of forgiveness. I think the second one was releasing inconsistency and bringing in the spirit of consistency and organization. Okay. Talking about releasing pain. Oh, okay. No, all good, all good, all good. Oh, okay, Charlie. Releasing. pain. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna like literally put it down. 3 was organization. Hmm. So what was true? Yeah. Oh God. I actually don't recall. Releasing the pains of the past to make way. Okay. Okay, beautiful. It's interesting. For the promises of the future and being, sorry, I'm going to write a incantation a little bit. The wording is just going to be very intentional. Releasing the pains of the past to make way for the promises of the future and being open to receive and accept the. Should we do this during an eclipse? I asked the same question as well. I asked the same question as well. It's gonna be intense. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna be an intense one. But it will come down like very, very quickly. Thankfully, I think that's why it was allowed in the eclipse because I did ask as well. I asked the guys. I was like, "Oh shit, you know what the Scorpio full moon's like for me?" But it's like, yeah, that's precisely why you kind of want to utilize the energies because it is going to be an eclipse, so it's going to like give us a quick kind of moment. So it's going to be interesting, though. It's going to be very, very, very deep and very quick. To be fair, releasing the pains of the past to make way for the promises of the future. And see, by you even asking that question, I know you get it. Releasing the pains of the past to make way for the promises of the future and being open to receive and accept the greatness that is inevitably bestowed upon the collective. I think I'm gonna we are one with the elements of source energy and through this connection we bring forth unconditional love in its abundant form. We bring forth consistency and organization where chaos once prospered, and we tell a new story as we experience a new form and format. It is so done, guys. A shame. Okay, so I basically like blended everything that was said from what I could get the gist of what the situation was. So I kind of like put a little intentional incantation together. Releasing the pains of the past to make way for the promises of the future, and being open to receive and accept the greatness that is inevitably bestowed upon the collective. We're open, we are one with the elements of source energy, and through its connection, we bring forth unconditional love in its abundant form. We bring forth consistency and organization where chaos once prospered, and we tell a new story as we experience a new form and format. Cache, which basically means, and so it is, which basically means so mote be, which basically means it's already done. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I'm a loser like that. Oh, I usually like to anoint my stuff first. I'm not gonna lie. I usually like to. You guys ready? Are you ready to burn? Burn, baby, burn. Was that okay for you guys? Do you guys concur? Because this was like me basically paraphrasing everything that was already said in the midst of the readings and stuff like that. The releasing the pains of the past is for the spirit of like resentment and all that kind of good stuff, and the impatience and all that kind of stuff. If we experienced any of that in the past, organization and consistency would be able to kind of like bring those formats into like grounding. Are we in agreement? Are we good? I'm going to put today's date, which is now the 6th of the 5th, 2023. It's 1:01 a.m. here. Thank you, guys. That's perfect. GMT. Signed the L.I.F.E Warriors, guys. Signed the L.I.F.E Warriors. Hashtag us. Oh, that's our name, BTW. We decided. Okay. We're all signed off. We're all signed off. Today's date, timing. We're all written up. We're good. The citation's in. You guys are going to have to let me know how this ish plays out when we catch up next week, because I'm going to be doing a testimonial Thursday. We won't have a live on Wednesday to talk about anything astrologically, but we will have a live on Thursday to catch up and see how this Scorpio full moon is kind of treating us, right? Where I want you guys to see the whole process, because this is something we're doing together, y'all. Okay, I want you guys to kind of like work with me at imagining that, you know, all of the stuff that we spoke about today, whatever crystal was for you, whatever it is that you're releasing, there's a format for it already written in the process of this. Okay, that was interesting. So this lets me know that it's going to take some work. Firstly, I'm going into my second light. So there's definitely some resistances to some of the things that are actually going to be manifesting with this. You can tell that I'm a pro. I burn stuff all the time. You see me just here like randomly holding it in my hand, but yeah. Okay. And now we're going in for a third, because this is what happens a lot of the times as well. This is me understanding as well how the stuff is actually going to unfold for the most part. Basically, how long it's going to take for this stuff to actually move through. It's going to take at least 3 cycles of unpacking to really get this stuff going. Okay. Hold on, we still got some more. Hold on. We want it all gone, right? Interesting. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I'm observing how it's like burning and the whole process of what's going on. Wow. Oh, interesting. Okay, guys. So I'll tell you guys what I observed with that. Interesting. So, depending on what crystal you obviously chose, um, what I observed is that it's going to take about six significant cycles. So it's going to take about six moon cycles. So it's probably going to take a 6 months process for the process of this situation to be able to come to complete clearance. Basically, for you to feel like, okay, I've purged, I've done what I've basically set out to do in this time continuum, like on this in this space and time. That's actually come to manifestation, that's come to form, that's come to light. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. If you chose crystal number 3, I guess it's money manifesting for you. Crystal number 2, it is actually future planning for you. And crystal number 1, it's sacral chakra creation. So for some of you guys, that may even actually like manifest as far as like pregnancies and births as well for some people if they manage to clear their chakras. And their chakras may have been prohibiting some of the fertility of like physical manifestation coming into form. But that's so interesting. It's interesting because my sacral chakra is already, it's funny because I would have thought that my solar plexus would be like what's thinking, but my sacral chakra is actually just already doing some funny shit. I can't even explain it to you guys. I actually just can't even move because the energies is so sensitive with it at the minute. But I actually chose crystal number 2, which was the solar plexus. But I might actually be needing for the energy to rise through my sacral, which I know that my sacral had been blocked for some time. But that was dope. I enjoyed that, guys. How did you guys feel about that? That was nice as well. That was cute. It's been a minute since I've done some stuff. Usually, like when I anoint it with my oil, I'm able to see like green flames, like to really activate the magic. But yeah, yeah, that was pretty interesting though. That was pretty interesting. Yeah, I think 6 months isn't necessarily too bad considering the dynamics that we're kind of like working with. But I think it's going to take us some time to ground, basically. I think that that's what that was. Because what it seemed like is like, okay, so what I saw with like with the first flame that you guys saw, there was a bit of like growth and traction, right? But then I then had to light it a second time again. And then a little bit more sort of like came. And then the third time, it's like a hit and miss on the third time. The third cycle was like nothing changed, nothing in the dynamic actually burnt or withered away or anything. The fourth time, then it was like vengeance is mine. That's what it felt like vengeance, but it was actually victory. But it was like it was coming from a place of like vengeance. So there may be situations that you navigate through where it's going to take a spirit of vengeance or a demon, I guess, of vengeance to be able to kind of like get you the victory that you're looking for in a particular situation. And it may actually occur sort of like 4 months down the line in terms of whatever crystal you chose and what you're navigating through. Um, and then in the fifth go, what I observed was that the fifth one, it did do something. It did kind of like start the flame going again, but it didn't like fully disseminate basically everything. Um, and then the sixth one, everything, it was like magic, like everything, the whatever wasn't about to catch in the sixth one, it separated and opened itself up basically like a lotus flower to just completely be released. So this may take up to 6 full moon cycles, which means about 6 months. The third month is a hit and miss. The fourth month is really where you start to see a transformational shift. Fifth month, you'll start to feel like the momentum is really developing. And then the sixth month, you'll be able to feel grounded in what it is that you're manifesting in this climate. Okay. I hope that that was useful for you guys, because this was a whole like workshop for the most part. So I hope that you guys enjoyed yourselves. This might be something. How did you guys find this space today? Because I find the readings actually like really long. They had like a lot to say. But yeah. Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, beautiful. I think we're gonna bring this little candle bad boy out again for when we need it. I won't do anything soon. Obviously, we need the next 6 months to kind of like ground. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good feedback, because I feel like we're going to take some time before we even do this again, because these were pretty big like transits. There was a lot of major arcanas in the decks as well. So these are like pretty big, things that we're navigating through. But yeah, we'll do this again once we've grounded. I'll check in with everyone next week and see how you guys are optimizing onto the timelines. And then we'll take it from there, family. Oh, dude. Thank you for your services. Sorry, I had to like close out the candle before I wrap up the space and then forget that that's on and then I leave. Because my candles can't go unsupervised. It really is a presence of spirits constantly being present. That's how I burnt my room 5 years ago. Was it 5 years ago? Yeah, 5 years ago. Okay, guys. I'm gonna love you guys and leave it there for you guys. I'm gonna go and see if my bay is still up, because it's like after 1 and I got church tomorrow. So yeah. But I hope that, the purging process goes well for you guys. I hope that you guys can, embrace it for the most part. You're gonna shed so much that is needed. It's gonna be beautiful. It's not gonna be easy. And it's not going to be, without some sacrifices, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it, guys. Let's do it. I probably should have taken a photo of what I actually said beforehand, right? Oh my God, I do that all the time as well. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's all coming up. What did I put on the paper? But we get the gist of it. We know what we mean, right? That's what I mean about ditzy stuff. But my guides know. They know to expect that kind of stuff from me by now. Eventually, I'll get there. Okay? That part. But no, I hope you guys have a super Friday wherever you are in the world. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow, actually. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, my loves, thank you again for stopping into this space as well, Chaley. You were a massive help in the space tonight. Yeah, it definitely was needed. Thank you guys. I'm gonna love you guys and leave it there. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay? God bless, guys. Night night. Enjoy Scorpio full moon. It's finally here, guys. Enjoy. Oh, thank you, beautiful. No, I gathered. I gathered. I did that a few times today with the Mercury retrograde. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense in terms of what I'm writing there. Hey, it is what it is. Love you guys. Bye. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. We've got free readings then, so I'll see you guys in the space. Love you. Bye.